you miss me? I've been out of it comatose, but the depression is...
Hello and welcome to Controlled Burns, the weekly hobby list podcast for me, SlowBurne from Wildfire Gaming. I'm excited to be joined by another new guest this week, my friend Chase Dillard. Chase, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Now, I have known Chase for what? Has it been a little over a year at this point?
Yeah.
I think it was whenever my wife was having like some furniture moved
Mhm.
in, which, I think that was I have pictures in my phone of when that happened. I think that was a little over a year ago. But I live next door to your grandmother, right?
Yeah, my grandma.
Okay. And so Chase has come over a few times to hang out and we've played some games. He introduced me to Darkest Dungeon.
Yes.
That was a good one. And then we played some Bloodborne. We played some Halo Reach like way back.
When
And
we
then
first started hanging out.
and I think we played a little bit of like the old school Star Wars Battlefront 2 as well because I had just been playing that. So that was interesting. Those were pretty good times. But in terms of just people that I've had on to talk about their top 25, so we've done me, we've done my wife, we've done my friend Sean, who was my roommate in college, and he was the one that I had the YouTube channel with whenever we were doing Wildfire Gaming. Those are the only people that I've had on so far. So Chase is the one I know the least out of all of those people. So it's going to be very interesting to discuss his top 25 and kind of learn a bit about why he likes the game he does. Just heads up, Controlled Burns is a weekly hobby list podcast, with particular focus on lists and topics related to video games, music, TV, and film, as well as other hobbies and aspects of pop culture. If you're interested in writing onto the podcast, you can have your comments or questions read on air. And you can write in at ControlledBurnes with an ES at gmail.com. So I guess before we go into the list, I will say I don't think I've really talked much about the Game Awards at all. And I know that you watched them. So did you have like any like big reactions from like the announcements or the winners or anything that stood out to you about that? Now that we're a week and some change away.
So initially, like Game of the Year, what was it? It had Metaphor,
Yep.
Black Myth Wukong, Astrobot. What was the other one?
Let's see. Well, there was the Elden Ring DLC.
Yeah, the DLC. The
Which
Elden
I
Ring
know that
DLC.
people were up in arms about. I felt, and there were a couple others as well. I felt like, to me, I was not surprised Astrobot won.
Really?
Yeah, like I know that a lot of people were, but when you look back on just like the critical, because it's a lot of people that are like work at outlets that are voting. And we look back at like the critical reaction to when Astrobot came out. I never saw a single person be like, "Oh yeah, this game is just okay." Like everybody was like, "Oh man, this game was like so good."
They loved it.
And Final Fantasy VII Rebirth was another nominee. But I did feel like that was also the case with that Metaphor game. So I thought that it had a shot as well. But I think probably just more people played Astrobot. Like for me, I have not played Metaphor. I think there's a strong chance. Have you played Metaphor?
I played only the demo. I haven't played the actual full game.
I think there's a strong chance that it's what I would actually vote for if I had played all the games and like I really knew what I was
like that's what
about.
it was. Because initially I was like, okay, it's either going to. Because initially I was with the DLC. I was like, it's DLC. This is
a lot of people
kind
thought
of
that way.
up in arms. So I was like, I don't know if that's going to get it or not, just because everyone's complaining about it. But for me, it was either going to be Metaphor or Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
And seeing Astrobot, I was like, oh,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were surprised, like a lot of just like regular people that were watching. Because I was watching with my cousin Brett and his sister Lauren, so my cousin's over there, and I think Brett was surprised as well. He was nervous that Wukong was gonna win because Wukong was getting like all the fan votes and like it just had like a lot of people played that game, and so
I saw footage of it. I never played it myself.
I
wasn't a massive fan of it. I was just like, okay, I know it's a decent game.
Well, it's funny because with Brett, I remember he was the first person that ever showed me any footage of Wukong, and it was like years ago, whenever it was like that video first came out, and he was like, "Look, this looks unbelievable." And then finally, when it came out, he was like, "Man, I'm not interested. I'm just, it's probably a solid game too. Honestly, that was a pretty good lineup of nominees, and like I said, I don't know that I would actually vote for Astrobot if I had actually played them all, but I will say I have played Astrobot.
Played Astrobot.
I haven't played it all, but I have, played a decent chunk of it, several hours, and I do like it a lot. I was a fan of the pack-in, with the PS5, the Astro's Playroom or whatever. I hadn't played like the VR game or anything like that, but I loved that pack-in game. And then, Astrobot's just like a full game version of that, and it's just like really great. So I think it's cool that it won. Even
Oh,
if,
it is cool.
I don't know that it realistically if it's better but like with Final Fantasy, that's the other game that I've played a lot of.
Mhm.
And I do have some problems with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, even though the original Final Fantasy VII is my favorite of all time.
Mhm.
And I really loved 7 Remake as well. And I like 7 Rebirth a lot. But it's very long. There's a lot of like these mini games and just like stuff in the like open world kind of standard open world stuff that I'm not crazy about. Whereas like Astrobot, like every single second that you're playing it, you were having a good
Yeah,
time.
you're having
So
fun.
it was a cool pick. It's as somebody that grew up playing 3D platformers, like that was pretty cool. But in terms of like announcements, was anything?
Oh, announcements. Okay, for me, obviously Witcher 4
Yeah.
that was a big one. I was like, oh, okay. That's why I literally messaged you. I was like, hey,
Yeah.
are you watching the Game Awards? Witcher 4?
Right. And I was because how quickly in that trailer did you figure out that it was The Witcher?
It was basically when they were doing the whole thing with the ritual and stuff and the flowers, and it's like this kind of reminds me of The Witcher.
Yeah,
but
I
I'm
was
gonna
thinking.
hold my
I was
horses.
thinking too. I knew for sure whenever the girl was like in the like the bath, because that's like at the beginning of Witcher 3, Geralt's in the bath.
Yeah.
And then like with the sword, it looked very Witcher. So, yeah, obviously we're both huge fans of The Witcher 3. And I'm very excited about The Witcher 4. It was a long trailer.
It was.
And there was not even a hint of a release date about it. So I guess it's probably nowhere near
2026,
yeah,
2027,
at best,
maybe.
at best. So was that what you were most excited about?
Well, I did like the what was it? Naughty Dogs.
Yeah,
The
Intergalactic. Mhm.
That's gonna be interesting.
Yeah, I keep trying to. I think I've got it down now with Intergalactic. I kept trying to call it something else. Interstellar, I think,
You
which is a
probably,
movie.
yeah.
Yeah. Which I haven't seen. But yeah, that was probably my next biggest two. I think we probably would have the same two. Intergalactic was kind of a similar thing, whereas like, they didn't. They were like at the very end, she like swings the sword against that robot.
They didn't show much.
But like, I will say there's like that one's. I think that trailer stuck with me more surprisingly. Like with the kind of the visual of like the ship coming in and like that kind of spiral planet or whatever the hell she's going on, and then just the music. I really like Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, who were doing the music for it, and even though it was like very like not super in your face music, that has stuck with me oddly, like the little kind of electronic music that they had going on. So that was up there for me. I would say my other, if I was rounding out a top 5, I would say Ueda's next project. So he's the guy that was previously did Shadow of the Colossus and Eco, and then The Last Guardian, which actually I haven't played. And like it was like a weird trailer as well, where he got his like the boy getting in the mech, but then like the head comes
and then
off.
the head comes off. Yeah, I remember that. Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
kind of like
I haven't actually played Eco or The Last Guardian, which is crazy. So the only one of his games I played is Shadow of the Colossus, but I love that game. And so that was really cool. Another one that I played a little bit as a kid, but didn't play a lot of. I want to go back to it, especially now, is Okami. They announced an Okami sequel. Have you heard of that?
I've heard of it, but I've never played it. I've always seen trailers and stuff, but I've never touched Okami.
Yeah, that was one of those. It actually came around, I think it might have come out the same year as Shadow of the Colossus. So it was like a time where PS2 was at its peak, and I just remember going into GameStop, and I would come home with like a classic every week. Like they were all just like so good, and they were just like pumping them out back then. And Okami was like super unique. It was kind of like a 3D Zelda style game, but they mixed in like where you would like paint on stuff, and you were kind of bringing this world back to life. But it was extremely unique art style at the time. Where it's kind of cel shaded, but it was also just like everything kind of looked like it was painted in like kind of like the old Chinese style. It was really cool. And then Split Fiction looks really cool too.
Oh yeah, I did. Yeah, Split Fiction looks awesome.
Yeah, they showed a lot of that. And I've only played have you played much of It Takes Two?
No, I haven't, but I watched a ton of people play.
Okay, I've played I had one session where I played it a little bit for a few hours with my brother-in-law, and I did like it. But Split Fiction looks cooler to me than It Takes Two.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Where there's like, seems like there's a lot more going on. It Takes Two, like there was that annoying book that kept popping up, or whatever. So yeah, so there was a lot of cool stuff announced. I think my biggest problem with the show, I've always been kind of critical of the Game Awards. There's usually a lot of stuff that you have to sit through that is objectively dumb, like the Muppets, for instance. Although they weren't as bad this year, I did get a kick out of the old guys, but like there's like they bring out the Muppets, they bring out like celebrities that don't really have anything to do with anything. This time, at
Yeah.
least, like the Indiana Jones game just came out, so it kind of made sense for them to bring Harrison Ford out. But then like Snoop Dogg was there for
Like
some
Snoop
reason.
Dogg was there.
I mean, he's Snoop Dogg, so of course he's just randomly does stuff all the time. So I
Yeah.
guess it's not too shocking. But
He's in Fortnite.
yeah, I guess that was the tie-in. But I think my biggest problem with it this year was just how he paced it out. Like it seemed like he packed almost all of the biggest stuff in the beginning for some reason.
Yeah, I
And
did
then there was
notice
like a
that.
big gap of like not a lot of interesting stuff. And then at the end, you had the
Mhm.
Naughty Dog thing and of course the announcement of Game of the Year. But I don't know why I did it that way. I would not do it that way. But maybe he has some metric or something where he said where like people drop off throughout the night or something and he
Mhm.
wanted to get them all in the front. I'm not sure.
Because Witcher 4, I was shocked at it. Because I was like, oh, is this going to be like a really stacked game
Yeah.
show if they're showing it this early? But it was all right.
I was thinking probably that Naughty Dog would close it out just because with The Witcher 4 starting, I was like, well, what could be bigger than that? And obviously, what he wanted to close it with was, and honestly, I don't know that Naughty Dog game is going to be bigger than The Witcher. Realistically, when it all said is this all said, and done. I don't know if any Naughty Dog game has sold as much as Witcher 3, but just in terms of like a big announcement, look, we kind of knew The Witcher 4 was going to happen at some point, but none of us had really seen anything about whatever Naughty Dog's next game is. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, if it was me, spread it out. Or even honestly, if it was me, and this might be a little bit too extreme, but I think I would stack all the boring shit in the beginning.
Yeah,
And then
no,
just
for
like
sure.
build up as you went because at the beginning people are the most receptive, like they're not gonna be as bored or tired or whatever of the show, and the show is very long. So if you started off with like kind of that stuff and then like it's ramping up, then I don't know, I feel like that would create more of a sense of momentum instead of like having these drop offs. Anyway, I always enjoy watching. I usually go over and watch it with my cousins. Like I said, I think I've done that the last 3 years. So even though I have criticisms of it, I mean it is kind of fun to watch.
Yeah.
And I love I like the awards. Like the awards like kind of seem like an afterthought at a certain point, except for like the big ones. But I love the when he brings on the orchestra and they do like a montage before.
Oh yeah, that's always cool.
I love that. The best one was 2020. Which is my favorite year.
Mhm.
That was the year where I was like really on top of it, where I had played like all of the nominees, and so that was like really cool to see that. But anyway, we're not here to talk about the Game Awards. We're here to talk about your top 25. And so Chase sent me his list ahead of time, so I know what it is. But there are some games on here, including the first one that we're going to talk about that I don't know a ton about. Which number 25, I believe this is the most recent game on your list, which is Mouthwashing.
Yes.
So I have read a little bit about Mouthwashing. My understanding is it is a short indie horror game.
Very short.
But what is it? What is going on in that game? Like, what makes it so good where it's on your list?
Well, for me, okay, so what it was because I like to go on Steam sometimes and I'll just browse around and I'll click something I know nothing about and I'm like, I'll give it a try and see. Well, of course, I'll make sure like very positive,
Right.
so I'm not getting
Yeah,
scammed.
user reviews on it.
Yeah, so I look at the reviews. If it says very positive or somewhat positive, I'll buy it. And plus, it was like $11.
Okay.
So booted it up and I started playing, and I was like, okay, a little short game. I was going through, but then it was like the themes were just grabbing me. I was like, for this to be an indie game, this is like a really well written story.
Okay.
And because you start off at like the very beginning where you're in like the cockpit area, and spoiler alert, anyone watching this who hasn't played it, but you're in the cockpit and it's like your screens are flashing like, hey, there's an asteroid, you need to move out of the way of the asteroid.
Okay.
And so as you do, you go up to the little console and you're like, okay, let me try to stop it. You only get two options: leave or angle your ship towards the asteroid. And you're like, that's not the direction I need to go. So you're self-sabotaging and you're kind of like, what's going on here? And then it goes back. It's constantly jumping between the crash, months before the crash, and days and weeks after the crash.
Oh.
It's very interesting.
And they're able to pack all this in like a short amount of time?
Yes, they actually do a really good job of encapsulating. Because if I'm being honest with you, I would like to see someone make a movie or like a short film about it, because it was that good.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So I feel like it's like toward the end. Was it recent when you played this?
Very recent.
Okay, yeah, because like I hadn't heard about it, and then it seemed like it was kind of popping back up where people were like, hey, in terms of like games that you should play before we move on to the next year or whatever. People were like, oh man, Mouthwashing is really good. And I was like, Mouthwash, what the hell could that? I heard the title before.
Huh?
What the hell could that be about? And everybody, yeah, it's one of those where it seems like everybody has really enjoyed it. But what's interesting is this is the only game on your list that came out this year, right? So
I believe so.
Mouthwashing, game of the year.
Game of the year for me.
You heard it first. ControlledBurnes, Mouthwashing, game of the year. I love that. Is it like scary?
I wouldn't say it's scary. Does it? For me, I don't find a lot of things scary, but I guess like to the average person, it could be has a little spook to it.
Okay.
But it's just something people have to experience, I feel like.
Yeah,
to
okay.
truly understand it.
Is it only on Steam?
I believe so.
Yeah, I'll have to look into Mouthwashing a little more because there's definitely some games on here that I have not played, but like kind of know generally about. But Mouthwashing, and then I think there was another one later on where I was like, man, I don't know a whole lot about this one. But okay, yeah, Mouthwashing, very interesting choice. You won't see that on the top 25 list for sure. Okay, number 24, you have Devil May Cry.
Yeah, that one I played. What was it? 2 years ago. I ended up buying it on my Switch Lite.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, let me test it out. And it's a pretty fun game.
Yeah.
Like, of course, it's because I have played what was it, Devil May Cry 5, which I haven't finished.
Right, that's like on PS5. Was that PS5?
I think it's like on PC too.
Modern, yeah, sure, but like a modern, recent game.
Very recent.
Yeah, but Devil May Cry goes back to like early PS2, like first year of PS2, and that's the one that you're talking about here that you play on Switch.
Yes.
Okay, well that's interesting. So I definitely that's somebody that was in the PS2 right whenever it was coming out because like I played the PS1 first, but when I finally got my own PS1, I would go to my dad's house and play his PS1, but when I finally got my own PS1, I think the PS2 actually was out at that time, but I like wasn't paying, like I was like lived in the country, like I didn't really know what was going on. So like to me a PS1 was very exciting. And then it wasn't too long after that where I found out about the PS2. And definitely Devil May Cry was one of the early games, especially whenever I started reading Game Informer in like 2005. My grandpa bought me a subscription for my 11th birthday, and I think the month that I got my first issue, they were talking about Devil May Cry 3, which was like kind of toward more the tail end of the PS2. But what's interesting about Devil May Cry, I haven't played it. I don't think I have known anybody like in my inner circle that has played it. So what is it like? What did you think? Like, how well did you think it held up? Being like that, it's an old game. Were you even like alive when it first came out?
What year did it come out?
I think it was 2001.
That was the year I was born.
Okay, all right. So it's the same age as you. So what was it about it that made it kind of good enough? You think to hold up, coming to it fresh, like just 2 years ago?
If I'm being real with you, if you play 5 and you're gonna play 1. They're pretty similar, like
really
combat wise and stuff. You're doing the same. It's a hack and slash. I'm not gonna lie, but it's a fun hack and slash, and it's goofy because it's like he red jacket, white hair. He's a cool guy, and there should be like these really dark themes, but it's like a bunch of goofy stuff where there's like a clown dancing around and your main character shooting a pistol at it, and he's like doing a little jig, and it's just stuff like that where it goes from serious to absolutely goofy. And so playing through that, I was like, oh, this is fun.
Yeah. Now you mentioned you played the 5th one. Are those only 2? You haven't played like any of the other series?
I've dabbled in I think it was 2 and then 4.
Okay.
But I haven't played 3.
Interesting. I know at the time 2 was considered like a disappointment compared to after one. Like I think everybody loved 1. Dipped for 2. I think it's kind of like similar to Dragon Age where people didn't like the second one as much. And then the 3rd one, people liked again. And then after that, it gets a little more nebulous because at that point they were jumping to a new console with the 4th one. I think that was a PS3 game. And then they had like the They had like DMC, which was, I guess, after
Like
that.
a reboot.
Yeah, that was interesting, and that was divisive. I think that a lot of people really like it, and then some people don't. And then, yeah, more recently they had Devil May Cry 5. So that's interesting. In terms of, I think of those games as like a kind of like the stylish action genre, where it's like you're doing hack and slash, but it's like kind of ramped up, right?
Cool hack and
Yeah,
slash. I
yeah,
would
yeah.
say.
And so I think about that. I think of the other games. I think of like being in that kind of subgenres, like Bayonetta, and then the old
100%.
school God of Wars. So is that like, have you played like
I
other
played
games like that?
Bayonetta, yeah.
Okay, and you like those as well, but you like Devil May Cry even more,
I like Devil May Cry more.
just because of like the style of it, and
Yeah, the style and the vibe it gives off.
yeah. Okay, very interesting. Yeah, that's another one. I think I have, because you can get the originals like on modern consoles, which obviously you did with Switch. So I think I might even have them on like where I had got them like on a really deep sale. So they're definitely games that I am aware of. I think for me, the only games in like that style that I've really played are the God of War games. And I'm not even like a massive fan of the God of War games until 3, which I really love 3. And then obviously the new ones, but the new ones are not really like those old games where it's, high action. Like there is like some action combat, but it's not the
Not
same
to
as,
the degree as
yeah,
it used
yeah,
to
yeah.
be.
Exactly. But I do really like God of War 3. So I imagine that I probably could get into Devil May Cry. Is it like going back to the first one, is it like kind of clunky at all, or
Oh yeah,
yeah, okay, I
100%.
figured.
It's clunky, but
Yeah.
it's. I know what I'm getting into when I go back to an
Yeah.
older game like that. Most people should realize it. Like when you're going back, there's going to be some clunk to it,
Yeah, definitely.
some tank controls
Yeah, yeah,
too.
yeah. But in terms of like an early PS2, I think they came out, they were within the first year of that console's release. Like that kind of pretty impressive
Did
at
a
the
pretty
time.
good job, honestly.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on to number 23, you have Titanfall 2.
So the reason I put Titanfall 2 on there is because me and my little brother absolutely love Titanfall. I honestly was debating going between 1 and 2 because we
Wow.
played both of them a lot.
Okay.
But Titanfall as a whole, that genre just gets me because I remember booting up the first game and being like, okay, this trailer looks cool. There's massive robots. There's guys shooting that aren't in robots. So I was like, let's see what this is going to be about. My dad bought it for me and I booted it up and I was like, whoa, this is sick. Going from, you're just a little grunt soldier shooting, blah, blah, blah. You're wall gliding and all that. And then you can call in a massive mech. And that's what got me. I just love the mech combat, going from mech to on the ground with your boots. It was like, this is cool.
And were you playing this on Xbox?
Xbox, yeah.
Wow, because I think the original Titanfall was an Xbox. I mean, I'm sure you could get on PC, but yeah,
Well, initially, yeah.
yeah, that was like the kind of one of their big pushes during like the Xbox One era, which yeah, I do have an Xbox One, but it was kind of after the fact. Whenever I got mine, it was actually my cousin's, and they didn't really. It was trying to sell it so I could get like a PC or something, and then I bought it for him. But it's kind of funny. Like until I bought my Series X, which I bought almost exactly a year ago because I bought it like during the Black Friday period last year, and they were like doing way deeper sales then than they are now, even like they did for this Black Friday. And so like I feel like I kind of got out like a bandit because like this one they were like, oh, you can get to the Series X like without the disk drive for like I don't know 420 or 400, maybe even as low as 400. I was like, I got the one with the disk drive for 350 with Diablo 4.
So it's like you got really lucky.
Yeah. But that was the only time to this day that I've ever bought an Xbox where it would have actually benefited Microsoft, where like they it was a new console. Because when I bought the original Xbox, which I still have upstairs, I bought it at like a GameStop, and it was way after the fact. Like probably the next generation had started by then. So I think I got it for like $50, and I got it, and it was just reeking of cigarettes. They were a chain smoker, whoever had that console before me. But eventually that kind of wore off.
Before we go, I have my own story about that.
Okay, yeah.
Because my dad bought us an Xbox 360 back when around Titanfall time.
Okay.
And then I bought like an original Xbox One, the chunky one.
Yeah.
From a Game Exchange.
Oh, okay.
Oh my God.
The one here in town?
No, it was actually the one in Paris.
Okay, got it.
Paris, Texas, by the way.
Yeah. But, right.
Not Paris, France.
Yeah. Right.
But yeah, me and my aunt went and I got it. It looked nice. It was wrapped in plastic. We are going, I think she stopped at a McDonald's to grab her something to eat. And I was like, let me open it out the plastic. I ripped the plastic open. It reeks of cigarettes, cat pee. It was so bad. I brought it into my mom's house. She said, "Get that out right now."
Yeah.
And so I take it outside. I have an air duster. I'm, spraying it out. And as I'm spraying it out, dead roaches are falling out. I was like, oh no. And so I called Game Exchange and was like, hey, I'm gonna need you guys to open this up and do a deep clean, or I'm gonna have to return this.
Yeah.
And at first they didn't want to do it, and they were like, "Oh, well," and I was like, I can just return it." And they're like, "Okay, we'll see what we can do." They cleaned it. It didn't smell as bad, but it was still kind of rough.
Yeah.
I was like, "My God,
Well,
what do people do with their
I
console?"
know, seriously. GameStop didn't do shit for my Xbox, but eventually you just kind I've had it for all these years, and
Yeah.
it doesn't smell like, I mean, I don't think it smells like cigarettes at all anymore, but
You're gonna take a sniff. It's
yeah, it doesn't, it kind of wore off. But yeah, anyway, so Series X was the first time I bought it, but the reason I bring that up is because I wasn't even like, I couldn't have gotten Titanfall 1 if I wanted to, like whenever it first came out, because I didn't have an Xbox. And then I completely skipped the 360, which I know is like the opposite of what most people did. But my brother had one, so there was still one kind of around, but yeah, I was pretty much PlayStation all the way. But it's interesting that you bring up Titanfall 1, because Titanfall 1, I know it's 2 that's on the list, but Titanfall 1 didn't even have a campaign, right?
I don't believe so.
Okay, so like when you're talking about
In a minute.
Titanfall, it's like the multiplayer.
Multiplayer. That's what I'm referring to.
Okay, very
Because I
interesting.
do know there was a co-op campaign.
In the first one?
I think it was for the first one or second one. It's been a long time.
Okay. Well, it's interesting because the second one definitely has a campaign.
Okay.
And in fact, people often bring it up as like one of the greatest, if not the greatest, like first-person shooter campaigns of all time, which I have not played. And have you even?
Okay, that's what it is. Okay, so I think the first one has the co-op campaign thing where it's like you're doing missions together.
Okay, that sounds probably about
And the
right.
second one, yeah, I remember BT. Okay.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, VT. So did you play through that?
Yeah, I did
Okay.
play through that.
And like, did it stand out to you as like being like a really great campaign, or is it mostly like the multiplayer that you still think of whenever
I think of Titanfall, it's because my little brother, it's a multiplayer. But
Yeah.
now that we're talking about it and I'm remembering, yeah, that campaign was a good campaign because I remember that one section where you're like going back and forth between different dimensions, realities, or whatever it is at the time. And like it's pretty sick. And then of course the ending where he's like, "Let's go," and they're going, he's like, "This is for you," and he throws him. He's like,
Yeah. Right. The VT. Yeah, I have not played it. I think my cousin Brett, I don't know if he has even played it, but I remember he like watched it. He like watched the campaign. He was like, man, that's like a great campaign. For me, I would say my favorite FPS campaign right now is Halo Reach, which we did start. We really need to go back.
We need to go back and finish it.
But I would be curious to see how that compares to like a Titanfall 2. Like that's the other one where I have bought it on like a deep sale, because you can get it like super cheap if it's on sale these days. I got it on like a super deep sale on PlayStation, so I'll have to check that out. I don't know that I would really get into the multiplayer that much, but I am interested in that campaign for sure. But okay, moving on to number 22 is Sid Meier's Civilization 6,
Yes.
The Thinking Man's Choice.
So I initially bought it when it was on Switch.
Okay.
And
I think I might have it on Switch also.
And I didn't play with people at the time. I was just playing against AI. And the whole tactics of doing things and managing your resources and stuff was pretty interesting. And then this year was actually a year I convinced 2 of my friends to go ahead and get it because it was like $5 on Steam. I was like, come on, we can do a campaign together. And that's a pretty fun game.
How's that work? Like when you're doing a campaign with
so it's kind of like how you would do a tabletop game where I would invite them, of course, and then let's say since I'm party leader, it'll let me go first. I'll go first and I'll take my turn, get what I need to get. Like if I'm trying to capture like a piece of land or churning out war units or builder units, I'll do that. Then I hit in turn and then it goes to the next person. So it's kind of like a tabletop game in the sense of, but it's online.
Right. And then you guys are like competing with each other?
Competing against each other. Or because like it has like the whole, you can get a win by either dominating the field with your religion.
Right.
Or domination, just literally massacring everybody.
Right.
Science, culture. I think that's it.
Okay.
Those are the wins you can do. There's probably another one I'm not remembering at the
Sure,
time
sure.
because everyone always just goes, "Oh, let's be friends." Stab in the back. And then
Oh.
everyone just goes domination at that
Oh,
point.
okay. Yeah, this is a interesting one because in terms of series that I'm interested in but never played, I would put Civilization very high. I think we've kind of talked about it before, but I really like turn-based
Hmm.
stuff and strategy games. I know it's like different, but like most recently, I know that you're a fan of this genre as well. I would say the most recent genre that I've gotten into would be like turn-based RPGs or like
Yes.
with the strategy RPG specifically, so like your Fire Emblems,
Hmm.
your well, honestly, Fire Emblem is mostly all I've done. Back when I was a kid, I had this again, going back to the PS2, like there was so much weird stuff that you get on the PS2. I had this Yu-Gi-Oh game, but it wasn't an actual like Yu-Gi-Oh game. Like it was,
I think I know the game you're talking
yeah, it was
about.
called The Duelist of the Rose or something like that.
Yes.
And it was actually like a grid,
Hmm.
like, like kind of like a chessboard type situation. And your units work hard, so like
Hmm.
that kind of tied into Yu-Gi-Oh. But like the mechanics were not like Yu-Gi-Oh at all. And you would just like move them around the board. And
Yeah.
so that was really kind of my first experience with like
Okay.
a turn-based strategy RPG like that because it was like really hard. Like you had to strategize big time. And what was crazy about that is like at least with like say Fire Emblem for instance,
Hmm.
unless there's like a fog of war, which they do sometimes, and then in that case you can't tell where enemy units are at all.
Hmm.
You can see them coming and you're like you can like inspect them and figure out okay this is going to be a problem
Right.
or I can send this guy in and he's going to be able to defeat him like because there's like the rock paper scissors type thing
Hmm.
with that Yu-Gi-Oh game until you attack them for the first time or they attack you for the first time their stuff is all like hidden and so like you don't even know
Yeah.
you just gotta guess and also like every single board that you play your opponent on like is like geared for them to like
I need to go back and play that game again because at the time I didn't know what the hell
oh
I was doing.
yeah
But
it
I do
was
remember owning that game and being like, "Oh, this looks cool."
yeah I still have it on the PS2 and every once in a while I mean every few years I think the last time I played it was like maybe I don't know, 2021 maybe,
Hmm.
like maybe as recently as that. Like because it's like because the strat like I'm not like a big Yu-Gi-Oh fan or anything, but like the strat I was when I was a kid. That was
Hmm.
the reason I picked it up in the first place. But like the strategy of it is so deep that and it's like so tough and satisfying to win that it's easy and it's mixed in deck building elements as well because
Hmm.
obviously like you're building you like it is a deck that you're pulling from that you so it's actually kind of awesome. Like I wish like they would bring that back, but I'm sure that that's never going to happen because it was like
It might.
such a
It might.
it was well a lot of stuff does come back these days,
It does. You
but
gotta give it time.
that one is like that is such an I feel like that is such an obscure pull because like it's not like Yu-Gi-Oh has gone away. Like I would feel like I would have a better chance if Yu-Gi-Oh had gone away and then they were like bringing it back. But like you people still play that today, and like the mechanics of it are like so complicated I could never even begin to try to get into it. But man, like that game was super cool. But anyway, so that was like kind of my first experience with that. But obviously Civilization very different because there's a lot more going on than just turn-based combat, right? Like
There is
you're making a lot
a
of more
lot.
strategic decisions than that.
Yeah, which like you brought up the fog of war. Yeah, there's fog of war in this too. But of course, as you advance, because you start at like the Stone Ages, you have
Yeah.
cavemen with
Yeah, no, it sounds
slings and
awesome.
stuff, and you progress all the way to the information era. I think that's what it's called today.
Yeah.
And doing that with other people, trying to figure out, what do I need to grab so I can, in case friend A comes over here and attacks me,
Hmm.
that I can trade with friend B to help me and do like a joint operation to stop this from happening.
Oh, so like yeah, man, building alliances and
You can
stuff.
build alliances, and of course, if you just don't want to play with three people plus three AIs. And
Sure.
so then the AIs also throw in like, I don't know what this AI wants. I don't, because a lot of times what it does, it will go off of like that uh persona's historical thoughts, like Abraham Lincoln or
Right.
Gandhi.
Yeah,
So like
yeah.
if you put an AI Gandhi in there, of course, if you're attacking people, Gandhi's gonna be like, I don't want to associate
That
with
is
you.
so
You're awful.
great. God, that sounds great. So whenever you play it like kind of the standard like single player thing,
Hmm.
it props in like how many like props in like some different AI. Is it like
It
randomized or
it could be randomized, but you can also go in and change who's all in it.
okay.
Like because it has too many to count, honestly, too many historical figures. But yeah,
Sounds so cool.
so if you do like a single player one, it's I've Doing it with multiple people, like friends, is fun, but doing the single player one's also interesting because you got Gandhi over here. He doesn't want you to attack people, but
Yeah.
then you have Caesar, who's like,
Mm.
"Hey, I like that you know are expanding out. That's cool. But what if you had to start killing people to do that? Then Gandhi's not gonna like you.
Yeah,
Then
yeah.
Gandhi has his own allies, and the allies aren't gonna like you. And it's like a whole system that they have. And I'm like, this is gonna be sick for when 7 comes out.
Right.
Can't see what they do. I can't wait to see what they do with 7.
Because 6, it's been a while since
It's
6
been a
came out,
while.
right? So yeah, that will be interesting. And this is a series that goes back a really long time. Was 6 the first one that you played?
6 was the first one I've ever played.
Okay, yeah. So like, if you go back and listen to the one that I did with my friend Sean, he is a huge Civilization fan as well, and I think 4, maybe 5. I can't remember one of the. It's definitely not 6. It's like pre-6. Where he was like, he just like loved, like, people that get into Civilization are just like super into it.
Once you get into it, there's no getting out of
Yeah,
it.
I've heard that, and like it's like hard to stop like once you start because you're always like
really
thinking
is.
about what you want to do next.
Because I remember me and my 2 friends, we started playing it. I think it was like 7 o'clock.
Oh man,
And we were playing so long, I looked down at the little, clock thing on my PC, and it was like 12:08, and I was
Yeah.
like, we should probably go to sleep. And they're like, no, just let's do like 5 more rounds.
5 more.
And I was like, okay, 5, because 5 turns, that's pretty fast.
Okay.
That 5 turned into 10.
Yeah.
Turned into 20.
Yep.
And then it was like 3 in the morning, and I was like, okay, we have to go to bed.
Wow.
It just grabbed me.
I love that. I've got to play that game for sure. I guess one of the main reasons that I haven't yet, and also Reagan I think would be interested in this as well because she likes strategy as well. She likes board games. And like bring like the idea of like building up, and she would definitely be like trying to be peaceful, like she'd probably be trying to like advance science or something.
What would you be doing?
I mean, I would probably want to do them, like try them all.
Uh-huh.
Like I would do one where I would be like, all right, I'm gonna conquer, and then I'll do one where I try to do like the religious thing. Like I think that I like that there's multiple ways.
Yeah,
that
multiple routes for you to win.
Yeah, I think that's really awesome. But I would definitely want to try them all. But it does seem very like from an outsider that hasn't tried it yet. It does seem like very complicated. Would you say that is true, or is it easier to pick up than it looks?
Yes and no, in the sense of if you sit down and just start playing it, it'll start to click like that pretty fast. But if you like, let's say you know nothing about it, you click on a YouTube video, you're like, what the hell is going on?
Mm-hmm.
It can be pretty, because there's a lot going on.
Sure.
But once you pick a route, you are like, I'm set in stone, I'm going science. Just start working on science stuff pretty much.
Yeah.
And churning out. Make sure you have some units to combat if someone's playing,
Yeah.
for dominance. And
Sure,
you're like,
sure.
okay, back up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like most people can get it pretty fast.
Okay, yeah. Well, I definitely gotta try that. That does sound awesome. Okay, moving on to number 21, you have Sifu. This is another recent release that again, I don't think anybody else in like my inner circle has played this. But I know what it is. It does look cool. So when did you play this? What was your kind of experience with it? What did you like about it?
I think it was last year I started playing Sifu.
Okay.
And I went through, I don't want to say I finished it because I did finish a route. I finished the revenge route.
Okay.
But I'll get into that in a second. But
great.
What grabbed me was cool action game.
Yeah.
And at the time I was like, okay, yeah, let's try it. And I got into it and I was like, this is a cool concept where, you're fighting and if you die, you age 1 year and you can come back. And what is the limit? I think it's like 60. Once you hit like 60, you're just dead.
Yeah.
But
and doesn't it like kind of compound on itself where if you like keep dying like in quickly, like you start aging like even faster?
I think so, but when I was playing it recently, because I'm still playing it. I'm doing the peaceful route now, but I've noticed every time I die, it's just 1.
Okay.
But I think that's also due to like the settings, because you can mess around with the settings.
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up because I think one of the discussion points when that game came out, which I can't remember if it was like 21 or 22, but like recent game, was that it was just like it's brutally difficult. And I think they did patch in an easier mode and maybe even made it the default, where I think maybe they had kind of toned it down a little bit with like the aging. So maybe that was
because I do remember it compounding initially, but then I went back and I was like, it's just 1 year every time.
Okay, yeah. So you must have played like maybe the updated version. So I was curious about that. Okay, so like you said that there's like a revenge route and so there's multiple routes that you can take.
I know for sure 2, but I think there's a third one
that
I need to look into. But there's 2. There's the peaceful route, and then there's the, or I should say forgiveness, and then there's the revenge route. Because, it starts with you're playing as this dude in all black, and he busts up into a dojo and he just starts kicking everyone's ass, and you're like, I don't think I'm the good guy right
Oh,
now.
interesting. That's
And you're
cool.
not. And you go in there and you go and challenge your master and you kill him, and then there's a kid in the little
Mm,
cupboard hiding, and that's the main character.
right.
Which I thought it was kind of cool, where it lets you pick the gender of the character, and it
Okay.
really doesn't matter, but it does at the same time, where it's like, oh, it's a girl, oh, it's a guy.
Hmm.
So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, that's not really cool. So how was it? How would you compare it to like? Obviously, it's a action game. So we already talked about Devil May Cry. Like, how would you say? Would you say that there's like some similarities between them, or do you feel like they're pretty different?
I would say in the sense of, because I always think of like hack and slash as like you're taking on a bunch of people. You're always taking them down pretty fast. But with Sifu, I don't know, because that one's a hard one to pick. Because of course, once you get good at the game, it does feel like a hack and slash, because you're just going through doing all types of crazy shit. But it's a fun game. I would say has there's some similarities, but not huge ones.
Okay, because it's a little bit more grounded and like
Mhm.
hard than Devil May Cry. It sounds like.
I would say it's a little hard, just
Yeah.
by a little bit.
Okay, cool. Well, yeah, that's definitely one that I'm aware of. So, I'll have to. I don't have that one. I don't think, because it's fairly new. So I don't know if it's gotten quite as deep as sales like your Civ 6 has. But, yeah, I am familiar with it. It does look super cool. Like combat looks awesome.
Because I played the company's, I think it's called Slow Clap.
Okay.
I played, what is that game called? It's gonna bug me now.
Here, let's see if I can.
Yeah, it was one of their first games, and it was also a fighting game that had different fighting styles in it, and they had the mask. They had mask on. But
Sifu came out in 2022,
mhm.
and Slow Clap. Oh, they don't even. They're so small they don't even have a Wikipedia.
Really?
Okay. So that would take a little bit more digging, I guess, to figure out what Slow Clap
But
did.
that,
But was like similar though, where it was like a fighting game?
oh yeah, very similar. And that's why it was a multiplayer game too. So that's what got me. I was like, okay, this is fun. And then Sifu came out, and I was playing Sifu, and I was like, they need to make another multiplayer fighting game, because this
Oh
is
yeah,
really
because you
good.
were like into For Honor, right? As
Mhm.
well.
I was into For Honor too.
Okay.
That game took some years off my life.
All right, cool. Yeah, so Sifu and they seem like they're an indie studio, right? So it seems
Mhm.
like they get through their games pretty fast. So this came out in 2022, and I think like kind of yeah, it came out early 2022. It was a February 2022 game. So they might be actually getting pretty close to whatever they're gonna do next.
Because they made, yeah, it was at the game.
Oh, was it
so
really?
that soccer game?
Oh,
I was
that's
kinda,
right.
Yeah, I was kind of like,
That was so
you
surprising.
go from two fighting games to a soccer game, but I was like, hey, they make good games, so it's probably
Yeah.
gonna be a good game.
Yeah, it probably will. All right, well, very interesting. We'll have to keep an eye on that. Okay, but going from so like Sifu, I would say is a fairly well-known game.
Mhm.
But number 20 in your list, Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. That's
Oh.
about as famous as it gets.
Exactly.
So yeah, talk to me about when did you play this? What's
See-
your history with the series?
Okay, the first time I saw it, I hadn't seen any trailers, no commercials, no anything. It was I was at school, and it was during like exam time. So what they do, they would be like, okay, if you don't have to take exams, you can basically piss off and go do something else.
But you're like still in school.
Yeah, I'm still in school right
Yeah,
now.
well, I mean, like whenever you're pissing off, like
Yeah.
you're still like in
You're
school.
still there, but
Yeah.
they're like, if you're not taking an exam, you can go to another teacher's classroom who's not.
Okay.
And so
Let me just tell you about this because I don't know if they still do it this way. So by the time I got to high school, if you were doing like you could get exempt from those exams. It was like the end of let's see, it's like the end of the semester, right? Where we would do this, and like in high school, if you got exempt, then you could just like I think you had to come just to like check in for like attendance at like 10, so like later than normal. But then you could just go home. But in middle school, you had to come and you had to stay all day like a normal day.
Yeah.
But we would go into like the main area of like our school because like our middle school is obviously very small, but like you guys grew up in a small town. But you go in and it's like kind of like there's like a stage. It's sort of like an auditorium, I guess, where it's like but calling an auditorium would be a gross overstatement. It had a stage basically.
Yeah.
And then there were like some tables in there. So we would all be in there and they were just like, do what you want. So this is like peak DS years. Everybody brought their DS in, picked up chat was popping off like you wouldn't believe. And like a big one for that time was the Mario Kart game that they had on the DS because only one person had to have it. And then you could play with 8 people. As long as they had DSs, obviously. But as long as they had DSs, you could. So it was like full lobbies. Everybody's an actual. I mean, the people that didn't actually have the game had to just be Shy Guy. So it was like everybody was Shy Guy, and then except for whoever had the game.
Right.
But like everybody's like a real person, playing. That was like awesome. Like, and then they were in the room. Like you could go find them. Yeah.
No, but yeah, they still somewhat do it. Which for the school I went to, middle school, you had to stay. But for high school, initially, like I think it was my freshman year and leading into sophomore year, you could come, check in, and then just leave.
Yeah.
But the thing where people were leaving, going, grabbing food, and coming back, and constantly going back and forth. I think someone got into a car accident.
Yeah.
And the person who got in the car accident wasn't supposed to even be leaving. They were supposed to be taking exams all day that day.
Right.
So then they changed it to closed campus where you can't leave. If you come to school, you're there until you sign out and leave and don't come back.
Yeah, I think we had a similar where we changed it during my high school days, and the reason was because we had an incident. Actually, I was there for this, but I could see that it was going south, and I was like, I'm gonna get the hell out of here. But there was some shoplifting going on at the local dollar store, and they got caught red-handed. And I remember like I was in there. We had like walked over to the dollar store, and they were like being idiots. They were like acting like they were gonna try to like steal some stuff, and I was like, man, these people are not being careful about this at all. And like right next to that dollar store, there's a Sonic, and I was like, I'm just gonna go over to this Sonic and get some food. And I was over there, and like how Sonic is, it's like they kind of the tables outside, you can't like, go in or anything. So like I made my order, and I was just like sitting there. I looked over, bam, there they go. They're just like running out the door. Here come the cops, and it was just like a complete disaster. But after, I think that was what made the school like change the rules, where it's like kind of similar, where it's like you come in, then you're in,
you're just here,
not, then you're not. So.
But yeah, so I was in high school, and like what you were saying about the DS stuff, they took it to a whole nother level where they were bringing like actual Xboxes, PlayStation.
Oh, we did that too. A lot. There was also like peak Guitar Hero year, so everybody was coming in with their Guitar Hero. Oh man, it was awesome.
Everyone was hooking them to projectors.
Yeah,
started bringing TVs, and it was cool to be around. But I was in there, and someone was playing Rainbow Six Siege.
Okay,
and so TV in front of us watching Rainbow Six Siege, and then there's two people behind us who are playing on a Wii U. And I'm looking, I'm watching Rainbow Six Siege. I'm like, okay, whatever, because I was bored. And I keep turning back around and looking at whatever it was, because I didn't know what it was at the time. And I was like, that kind of looks like Link from Legend of Zelda.
Yeah.
And so I go over there, I'm like, what is this? And they're like, it's Breath of the Wild on the Wii U. And I was like,
Wii U.
And I sat there and watched them play, and I was like, this seems like insanely good, because I'm, at the time, I haven't seen a game quite similar. Like you literally climbing mountains.
Yeah,
climb stuff. You have a glider. Of course, your weapons break and all. And it's like, this is crazy.
Right.
So then, literally that same day, I was like, hey, Mom.
So did you have a Switch yet?
I did not at the time. I had a Wii U.
Okay. So you got it for Wii U.
Yeah, for Wii U.
That is interesting. I've definitely never heard anybody else played it on the Wii U.
And what's crazy is it wasn't even my Wii U. It was my little brother's. He absolutely loves Nintendo. He has Nintendo everything. And so I was like, hey, Mom, can we buy this game? And she's like, yeah, we'll see.
Okay.
And she ended up buying it, and that was a fun game.
Yeah.
Say that.
No doubt about it. Now, had you played other Zelda games before this?
I think, what was it called? The Minish Cap?
Yeah.
I played that one.
Wow. On the Game Boy Advance? Okay.
Because I used to have one, but then my little dog I had at the time just ate the cord up.
Yeah.
And at the time, because I got it from Game Exchange, of course.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, Mom, the cord's gone. And she was like, well, we can go get you another one. And then we just never got another one. Yeah. But yeah, that was the only Legend of Zelda game I actually played, was the Minish Cap.
Breath of the Wild.
Breath of the Wild.
That is really interesting. I did not get a Switch right when it came. I think I've had every Nintendo console since the Nintendo 64, except the Wii U. I did skip the only one. I skipped the Wii U. I think technically I might actually have one now. I think if you look at that little peek basket right there, I think there might actually be a Wii U in there. And it was my brother-in-law's. Because he had a Wii U. They were like a Nintendo exclusive household. Like Reagan kind of grew up with the Wii, and she had a DS, I think, like a DS Lite maybe. But I started with the Game Boy, just Game Boy.
Just a Game Boy. Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
it was called it was like a hardware revision. So like, think of like the PlayStation Slim or something.
Right.
Where it was like it wasn't like the original, like if you look at the original with like the green screen, mine was like just a black and white screen and it was smaller than that. That was my original like really like console because I had that before I had like the PS1 even. And then I did upgrade to a Game Boy Color later on. And then I upgraded to a Game Boy Advance. And then even a Game Boy Advance SP and then a DS. And even I never actually got a 3DS, I had a 2DS. But same thing. And then, obviously the next was Switch on the handheld line. And then on the console, I was always PlayStation first on consoles. And I didn't have a Nintendo 64 until, again, after the fact. I think I actually bought my Nintendo 64 for like $20 at GameStop. And you could go in a GameStop and they would have this big, it was like kind of even built for Nintendo 64 games even. It was like this big, it was kind of like a basket, but it was very shallow. So instead of like digging deep, it was just like wide and they would just be full to the brim of Nintendo 64 games, just like lines and lines of them. And of course you couldn't see what they were because like they all look gray. So you had to like pick them up and
look at it. Yeah.
Exactly. But that was like a big thing where we would go and get a bunch of cheap Nintendo 64 games. So I had a Nintendo 64. I got a GameCube pretty early on because GameCubes were pretty cheap. So even like when they were new. So like I had a GameCube and then obviously I got a Wii. Everybody had a Wii. And then I skipped Wii U. And then obviously now I have a Switch. But before, and I had like dabbled in Zelda games as a kid. I don't remember what the first one I ever actually played was. I think it might have been the original. But I had this, and I still have it. And actually I got this I kind of screwed my friend because like we made like a trade. So he was interested in my copy of Sonic Heroes for the GameCube, which is, solid. It's a fun little game. So I traded him Sonic Heroes. And what I got in return was the Zelda Collector's Edition disc, which had Zelda 1, Zelda 2, Ocarina of Time, and Majora's Mask all on one disc.
Oh my gosh, he did get screwed.
And to this day, I think later on he was like, kind of realized that he got screwed, but I was like, hey man, this is the way it goes.
Sorry, boss.
And also, I think I had another copy of Sonic Heroes anyway, so I lost nothing.
Oh my
I think I had it for the PS2 as well. But yeah, so that was an easy trade for me.
Very much so.
But that was actually the disc that I used. I know for a fact the first Zelda game I ever finished was the original, which is pretty crazy, honestly.
That is.
But that was definitely the disc I played it on. But I had like at least booted up all the others. So I had booted up Zelda 2, I had booted up Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. And they even had a 20-minute demo of the Wind Waker. Because it was like came out before the Wind Waker was actually released. But like I played the demo of the Wind Waker. And then my copy of the Wind Waker actually I think I might have just straight up stole that one. Because like it was like a friend had to like let me borrow it or something, and then
it just sits and no one says anything.
Right.
So you're like, eh.
Yeah, so I still have that as well. And then I think Twilight Princess was the first one where on the Wii where I was like knew it was coming out, was excited about it. It came out, I got my Wii, I got my Twilight Princess like pretty much right away. And I played a lot of Twilight Princess. So that was the first one I feel like I really got super into. And then it was like kind of later on where I finally went back and finished the first one. But it was like a series that I was interested in and like I dabbled in, but I didn't like play a lot of. And then I think it was 2022, maybe even 2021. I had to go back and check my notes, but I was like, you know what? This is like considered one of the greatest series of all time. I'm just gonna play all of them. And so I kind of like looked up the timeline, which is complicated because it like splits. There's like multiple timelines in the Zelda series. It's ridiculous. But I was like, I'm just going to play all the Zelda games. And I did. And like it took a long time. Like I kind of chipped away at it over years, but started with Skyward Sword and like went down like the timeline and like the different branches. And so by the time I got to Breath of the Wild, it's like at the end of everything. And so it was last year. Maybe it was the year before last year. I can't remember, but I want to say it was last year where I was like, all right, it's because like I had Breath of the Wild at that point when I bought my Switch. which again I didn't get like at launch. I think I bought it in like 2019, which I might as well have gotten at launch because it didn't go drop in price 1 cent. But I bought my Switch and I walked out of there with like a pretty good stack of games. Like normally when I buy a console, I don't buy that many games. And honestly, I haven't even played all the games that I bought that day. But like I bought the highlights basically. I got Breath of the Wild, I got Super Mario Odyssey, which I have never played. I got Octopath Traveler, which is what I was actually most excited about for Switch. That was the main reason I wanted to Switch at the time. And then I think I got like LA Noire, yeah, which I never played. Yeah, so I walked out there with a lot of stuff. I think I booted up Octopath Traveler first, but then I booted up Breath of the Wild. This is before I had like played all the series, and I was like, man, I don't know, like it's just like very aimless, you know, like there's like you just can go anywhere. And you have like this incredible sense of freedom, but I was like, gosh, there's just I don't know if I can like really wrap my head around this. And then I kind of like dropped it, and then like at the end of that year, I started it up again. This is whenever I was moving to New Jersey for work at the like pre-COVID. I was like moving to this new job, and I was actually like planning like this big life move, and I went to New Jersey, and so I've been playing it. And I was like, man, this is like a really great game. But then, and like I had so much stuff going on in my life that I just like kind of dropped it again. So, but then this time, I was like, okay, I've done all the games, so I'm definitely doing it now. And then I like did except for getting all the Koroks. I did not get right. I did not get all 900 whatever Korok seats or whatever. But I did all the shrines. I did like all the dungeons, which you had to do. But like just like everything that I could do that was realistic for me to do, like all side quests. Like I even had like this map where I was like checking them off. It's like boom, done, boom, done. And so like I did everything. I even did the DLC where it was like there was like 2 DLCs that they released for Breath of the Wild. One of them was called like the Master Trials or something, and it was like
with the Master Sword.
Yeah, so like you like go into like these basically just combat arenas that they set up for you. Have you ever played much Super Smash Bros?
Yeah,
like with there's that version which I think is in most of them where you're like, all right, you're going on a gauntlet. You got to beat everybody in the game. And like you go, and then like every once in a while you go into this room and you can kind of like recharge, like get your health back.
Right.
It was like that, where it's like you're going through like all these rooms, all these combat rooms, and then there's like a room where you can kind of, there's like some materials they gave you where you can like cut down stuff. And like that's the other thing too with like the Master Trials, like they give you nothing. Like you have whatever hearts you have built up, but other than that, like you got no gear, nothing, no armor. And and like if you lose, then sorry, bud, you got to go back, to the start. And there's like 3, I think, like tiers. So like you go through the first, get to the end, you power up the Master Sword by like 10 damage. So it's already doing like 30, get to 40, 50, and then 60. So by the end, after I like pulled all that off, which was super fun, then I got to, and I did this like kind of early because like I know a lot of people when they play Breath of the Wild, they kind of dip into the the energy, because whenever you do 4 shrines, you can just choose whether you want to build it. Yeah. So, but not me. I was going heavy on hearts. Because I was like, I know that it like makes it a little bit more challenging to like get up some of these mountains and stuff with just one energy wheel, but you can make it work.
Yeah, you can.
And like and also you can like eat food and like kind of replenish it, and like I was like, that's way easier to work around than not having hearts. I felt like, so I was like heavy on hearts, and so I like was like I built up like until I got to max hearts, but I think I'd only beaten like 2 of the dungeons at that point, so like I still had like half the game to go.
Yeah.
And then I was like, well, this is as good as I'm gonna get because my gear doesn't matter, so I'm just gonna go in with my max hearts and see how I do. And that was enough. And so then for like the second half of the game, I just had like this busted ass Master Sword. It was awesome.
Yeah, that's pretty sick.
So yeah, I really had a great experience with that. And then like the other DLC was mostly post game stuff, and that was like really cool as well. And like they added like an extra dungeon that was really fun. But I think across both of them, they also just added like all this like kind of quality of life stuff where like, for instance, you could just whistle for your horse, and no matter where he was on the map, he just appear to you, like make the horse like actually usable. And then like another one was like you could pull up the map and it would just like bam, it would tell you everywhere that you had been the entire game, like just like this one long green like trail of this everywhere you had ever been in Breath of the Wild. And I was like, well, this is sick. Like I can like see like kind of like the holes or like places that I missed, So that was really awesome. And then they added like all of this gear from like previous Zelda games. So like you could wear Majora's Mask, for instance.
I did see that. Yeah.
And like if you were wearing it, like they would do stuff. If you were wearing Majora's Mask, enemies just won't attack you. So it's just great. So you can just kind of like going through like
Walk
a
on
pacifist
through.
mode, yeah, and like nothing's like really gonna bother you. I think if you like start hitting them or something, then they
Yeah.
will. But or if like you get too close or like brush up against them or something, maybe they'll attack you. But for the most part, they just kind of ignore you. And so like just like using all the different stuff that they had put in like that, man, I think Breath of the Wild is so freaking good. Like I have it. I think it's like it's definitely my top 10 like of all time. And I went in expecting to like it the third time just because I had played the other games in the series. But I did not like I'd played Elden Ring before this and stuff, so like it wasn't like it came out in 2017. Like things had kind of progressed since then. Whenever I was playing in 2023, and I still was just like it like exceeded my expectations. Like
It blew my mind at the
yeah,
time. I was like, this is crazy.
yeah. So that was an amazing experience. I think that's a masterpiece of a game. I guess it's you got to like bring up obviously Tears of the Kingdom has come out since then. So what's been your experience with that?
You didn't play very much of it.
Really?
Because I was running into issues with it where it crashed on me a few times.
Really?
Yeah, on my Switch Lite, and I was like,
Man, I want that.
because I got it around the time it dropped, because I was like super hyped for it.
Right.
I started playing it's a good game, and I was going through it, but it crashed multiple times, and I was hitting like heavy lag, and I was like, I'm just gonna sit this down for a bit, and I didn't go back to it.
Yeah.
But now it's probably better because they've updated it and fixed stuff.
So I've since upgraded my Switch to a Switch OLED. But I still have my old Switch because I use it for Reagan. But I don't think that really upgrades the hardware or anything. I think it's just a screen update.
I think so. I'm not 100% what they did with the OLED other than the screen.
I'm really not either. But yeah, so maybe so it's possible it might help a little bit. But I will say, like, when I did Breath of the Wild, now I did everything. This is like 100 plus hours from that one playthrough of Breath of the Wild. Which of course, I mean, it would be if you do like all the shrines, like, all the quests and everything. I did that over the span of about 4 months. Tears of the Kingdom, I started pretty quickly after that. And I've put in, 60 plus hours probably in Tears of the Kingdom. But, we're almost into 2025 and I still haven't finished it. So, I think that does probably say something. I really like it. There's stuff that I like about it better. Like, I think the powers in Tears of the Kingdom are better. But, and I really like the dichotomy between like the sky islands and like the kind of underground area.
That was cool. I will give them that. Yeah.
Right. But it is kind of hard because you're in like, at the end of the day, it's very similar to Breath of the Wild. So it is kind of hard for it to, like, it can't really blow your mind.
Yeah, because you've seen it.
Right.
And so you're like, oh, yeah, we're back in the world, but not too much has changed other than Sky Island, underground.
Right. So I do expect to finish it eventually, but I'm definitely taking a lot more time with it than I did. And see now, like, I was thinking like once I finish Tears of the Kingdom, it's like, man, it's gonna be great. I'm gonna do like a big Zelda episode, and I'm gonna rank all the games, and it's gonna be awesome. And now they've already like got this new Zelda game. I was like, man, I gotta like pick up the pace. They're releasing games faster than I can finish them. Now I'm sure that Zelda game isn't as like long, obviously, as Tears of the Kingdom, but yeah, I gotta get moving on that. But anyway, Breath of the Wild.
Breath of the Wild, good.
Yeah. All right, moving on to number 19 now. This is The Walking Dead Season 1. Now, this is interesting because my cousin Brett also absolutely loves this game. I feel like this was a major release in terms of kind of bringing back like the adventure, that's what people call it, style genre. Like Heavy Rain came out in 2010, Walking Dead came out in 2012. And that was like really big for like bringing that type of the narrative, choice-based games kind of back. So when did you play The Walking Dead, and had you played stuff like this before?
No, I have not played anything like it before at the time. And
so this was like a while back then.
This was a while back when I played this. This was because I played it on Xbox 360.
Okay.
Yeah, on this. So I never played anything like it, like I just said, but something was like, hey, I think it was one of my friends. He was like, you should try this out. Yeah. It's pretty cool. And I was like, oh no.
Yeah. Because I mean it's based on an existing property. Yeah. So like had you ever like
I never really knew much about The Walking Dead.
Yeah, me neither.
So I was like, okay, I'll give it a try. And so I booted it up and I started playing it, and I was like, like the intro, you're going in, you're sitting in the back of a cop car.
I've seen that's basically all I've seen is like that intro where you're in the car.
So yeah, you're in the cop car and you're going and you're like, what did we do? That's you. What did we do? And you really don't know. And the cops up there, talking about previous people he's taken. And as you're going, you just see cop car after cop car with their lights on, and you
Yeah.
see helicopters and stuff, and you're like, what's going on? And then the cop's not paying attention, and there's a zombie in the road, but of course you don't know it's a zombie.
Yeah.
And then he just hits it and you crash, and you're like, what's going on? But of
Mhm.
course, as the player, you know what's going on. But in
Yeah.
Lee's shoes, he's like,
Right.
what's
Yeah.
what's going on?
Yeah.
And so you go through that, and then you meet Clementine at her house, and then you make it to Herschel's farm. That the entire game, it's just the whole narrative is good. I loved it, so that's what literally got me to watch the actual.
Oh, really? You
AMC.
watched it after that?
Yeah, I started watching
That's
the
cool.
AMC.
And are those characters like even in the show, or so this is just original?
Other than Glenn,
Okay.
that's the one character who shows up in The Walking Dead, and he's in the game, but he's only in the game for like
He's kind of like a cameo.
he's like a cameo character, yeah. And I love The Walking Dead. I could say that now after I played, a bit of it and then watched the show.
Yes.
It's actually a good like IP. I like it a lot.
Yeah. Now I know that the series continued after the first one as well. Did you like get into like
I dabbled a little bit in those.
Yeah.
Like I played season 2 for sure, but then 3.
Yeah, I don't even know
played
how
here
many
and
there
there.
are after
I
like.
think there's 4.
Yeah.
Plus like the spin-offs with like the Michonne one and the 100 Days game.
Right.
But other than that, I
Yeah,
think
that was
that's it.
they really went hard on that one because
They
it was
really
obviously a
did.
big success for them. So I love Heavy Rain, which I think I played before any. No, actually, I think my first game like this was a Telltale game. I think I played The Wolf Among
The Wolf
Us
Among Us, yeah.
before I had played any of the. Now I did not play The Walking Dead, even though Brett loved it. And I don't know why. I just didn't ever. I just have. It's still to this day, I haven't ever gotten around to it. But I should play it for sure. And Reagan, particularly, like loves these style of games. So we played The Wolf Among Us together as well. And then Heavy Rain after that, which that's my favorite. And that is not by Telltale. It's a little bit. I feel like there's a little bit more going on in Heavy Rain. Like in terms of gameplay, there's a little bit more. It's still very much like you're doing like the button combinations, kind of like what you would do in Telltale. But there's a little bit more involved, and I like the story better. But then the most recent one I did was actually, and this was kind of a crazy one because you cannot get it like digitally anymore. Is Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I remember you talking about that.
Yeah, because like because Reagan and I are huge Game of Thrones fans, her in particular. And I was like, I think I was like looking at an old list of like the best games of, I don't know, whatever year it was, 2015 or something. And like that was in there, and I was like, now hang on a second, what is this? Because like obviously I knew Telltale, and I was like, a Telltale Game of Thrones game, this sounds amazing. And then I was like trying to look it up, and it wasn't on the store fronts or anything, and I was like, oh, it got delisted. But then I was like looking for like a hard copy, and I was able to get one, and I was like, well, this is going to be awesome. And so that was a lot of fun. Like that was kind of probably similar to The Walking Dead in some ways, because it's obviously an existing IP that they were telling an original story about. And like you play as new, like original characters. Like it's not like characters that are in the show, but then there are like characters that are in the show that they bring in. Yeah. But I love those style of games, so I definitely should try this.
But I'm gonna go on a little tangent here.
Okay.
I absolutely love Game of Thrones also.
Okay.
I still haven't finished House of the Dragon, but the thing was, I'm going back to the Game Awards.
Oh.
There was that
Yes.
Game of Thrones, and I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. That's what we all want. Right.
It's a mobile
It's
game.
a mobile game. I know.
They're like, it's an open world game. And I was like,
how's that even going to work on a mobile?
Yeah, why not just make it a console game and make it a serious thing? Why does it have to be a mobile game?
Yeah, I know.
So it looks like we're going to still be waiting for an actual good Game of Thrones game.
Yeah, we need like what the Harry Potter fans got with that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But like, because there was a Game of Thrones games before the Telltale game that was like a PS3 Game of Thrones game, but apparently it was just trash.
Yeah.
I think I actually picked it up at Game Exchange, but just because I'm a fan of the IP, but I haven't like tried it. I know it's not very good. So, but you know the Telltale one was good. But yeah, obviously I would rather have like a Witcher style Game of Thrones.
That would be amazing.
Yeah. All right. And speaking of that, kind of transition into the next one, number 18, another open world game. Ghost of Tsushima.
Ghost of Tsushima is really good. I kind of like I'm saying these are all really good, but they're my top 25 games,
Right.
so obviously I'm going to say they're really good.
Yeah. So this was one that for me I was very excited about it. I remember this is another one where Brett had showed it to me, where he was like, "You got to see this," and I think it was like what they showed at E3, 2018 or whatever it was. And I was like, "Oh man, this looks amazing!" And then I got it right when it came out, platinumed it in about a week, and then I didn't really ever go back to it until recently because obviously I knew that the second one was coming before they announced like the Ghost of Yota or whatever. I was like, obviously they're gonna make another one, and so I was like, I need to go back and like play that DLC, you know, that they added. So I haven't actually gotten to it yet, but that is, I do want to do that. But when did you play it? And like, you know,
Played it around the release time
all
because
right,
it was a new PlayStation exclusive.
yes, like right at the end of the PS4.
Uh-huh. And
Okay,
I played it on PS4, and dude, I was like, well, this is a sick samurai game.
yeah,
Could you go in, they're giving you a big war speech before they charge the beach and take on the Mongols.
yeah,
And I was like, oh, wow, this is cool. Which, of course, they're like, of course, there's that tutorial and they're trying to show you how to fight. But
yeah,
they're not saying anything. They're just like, oh, go ahead. Go ahead and fight these guys.
yeah.
But just that opening sequence with them, and what's his name? The Hun.
Oh yeah, Koten Khan.
Yeah, his
Something.
cousin or uncle or something. But
Yeah.
yeah, him just throwing that wine on the dude and setting him
Oh
on
yeah,
fire.
that
I
was a
was
good
like,
introduction.
okay,
Yeah, he's a bad dude.
I think he's a bad guy.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
going through that, and then you get injured and wake up, and doing that whole like sneaking mission
Yeah.
to where you get your sword and he holds it up.
Oh
to the
yeah,
light. And I was
that's
like,
good
oh yeah,
moment.
this is about to be awesome.
Yeah.
And it pretty much was.
Yeah.
Like, I enjoyed almost like every second of that game.
Yeah, I did too. Did you ever go back and do like the DLC or
I
anything?
didn't.
Yeah, and there's even like a multiplayer thing now that I know
I
people
did
like.
try that.
Oh, really?
multiplayer
Okay.
thing. It was interesting.
Yeah.
I played it with someone, I can't remember who it was, but we were like, it's a game.
Yeah. Well, how do you feel about it compared? Because like I know that there's like a big, like a common criticism of open world games is that there's like so many of them, and they all kind of like do similar stuff where you expand the map and you take out the bandit camps and everything. And
Okay, I will say this about that because I know the one I'm about to compare it to is higher up on the list because I'm
okay,
pretty sure it's there. But like Red Dead Redemption 2,
sure,
it's really good, but I'm using it as an example is because that map is massive.
yes,
And like, yeah, there's points of interest and stuff to do, and some random stuff will pop up, but it's an open world, kind of like also Starfield.
yeah,
Like how most of those planets are empty, but they're
right,
there for you to travel to.
right,
But it's like it's something I don't think you can really escape because it's open world. What's like think about real life for a second. It's like you don't go into every building you see.
yeah,
Because
exactly,
you don't have permission to walk into the back of Walmart and be like, "Oh, what are you guys going on back here?"
right. Yeah, I think my favorite thing about it, like I enjoyed it all as well. I don't think I liked it as much as some people are like really big, like my friend or my cousin Brett's. His best friend, Ghost of Tsushima is like his number one of all time.
Really?
So some people are like really,
Die
really
hard.
into it. Yeah. But what I think that was like really smart about it was obviously they tried to make it as beautiful as possible,
Mhm.
and then they did that system with the wind
Mhm.
where like it's
That
kind
was
of
really
telling you where to
cool.
go, and so like they can like just like immediately get rid of like everything else that you don't need in terms of your HUD, and so like a lot of times you're like going through the world, and it's just like nothing is on the screen other than just like the world itself. You know what I mean? Like there's no
No mini
other
map,
anything.
no,
Yeah, I
yeah.
thought that was like really well done. That was really smart for them, I would say. And then I guess another thing that I would say, like it definitely doesn't like its side quests are definitely not on the level of like a Witcher.
Oh no.
But there's like a few there weren't like a ton of them, but those quests where it's like I don't know if they call them like mythic quests or whatever, but it's like the ones where they'll tell you a story about like a sword or something, or a story about a
Yeah,
piece of
yeah.
armor or a move, and it's like now
Those were sick.
yeah, then like they like did like the animation of like telling you about the backstory of it, and then like you kind of like do a little quest, and then like you get for yourself basically. Like that was really cool as well. I really like those.
Because the one that had me like, oh, this is kind of a cool concept was the whole. I think it was the one with the bow, the
Yeah,
mythic quest with the bow, where you go in and they're like, oh, it's the demon of the bow,
yeah.
and you're fighting them, and then it's kind of like, whoa, is this actual demon or are we just poisoned? Like, because you're sitting there for a second, you're like, something to think about.
Yeah, yeah.
Because obviously it was just poison.
Right. Yeah, and like I really like whenever he would like it was like a sword move and he would come up against somebody that was using it and he would like kind of be like trying to learn it during the fight and then like at the end you like finish him off with it.
Wasn't there one where he like did like the sword move and there was like a lightning strike?
Yeah, I think there
Like,
was.
okay,
That was
that's what keeps
awesome.
popping in my head. And I was like,
I think that might be the first one. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good game, no doubt about it. And I've kind of been dabbling in it again, like I said, because I got to go back and do the DLC, which people say is very good. I definitely want to check that out
I
before.
haven't touched
And
it.
and it's interesting. How did you feel about the new one being like a new protagonist?
I was at first I was like, where's Jin? But I was like, his story's past. So
Yeah, I
I was
mean,
like,
it kind of like, I mean, obviously, like they could have kept going with him, but like, I mean, I think it's kind of a cool idea to just move on.
I feel like it's kind of like the same thing that's going on right now with The Witcher,
Sure.
which is kind of weird because I like Siri, so it was kind of weird to go online and people be like, why is Siri the Witcher in this
Yeah.
one? I thought we were gonna have an original. And it's like, dude, you played as her during Witcher 3
Right.
for a long time. You're looking for Siri, so if they wanted to go one route, Siri was that route.
Oh yeah, I think it's awesome. Like I mean, yeah, I'm assuming you haven't read the
I
Witcher
have not
books.
read the books.
Actually, you can see. Well, they're kind of like on that third shelf down, but under the where Metroid is. But I got like all of them. But I have read all the Witcher books, and in the beginning, like the first couple are really more like short stories, and it's really awesome because it's very similar to Witcher 3, where it's like those side quests are kind of like that's probably part of the reason why they're so good is because like that's just kind of the history of the Witcher is built on side quests basically. Like even
Makes
the books are kind of like side questy in the beginning, and then it kind of becomes like more of like a normal book like toward the end, and like obviously Geralt is a big part of it. He's definitely the main character of the short stories. But by the time that you get to like the main books, really Ciri is kind of the main character, honestly. Like there you spend a lot of time with both of them, but I would say that Ciri is the main character of like the books by the end. And so it's like kind of exciting for just as somebody that has actually read the books, like to be like, okay, so now Ciri is going to be the main character again. Yeah, because like when most of the books she's like well, at the beginning, she's like a little girl, and then like she's like kind of a teenager for most of them. So like obviously she's an adult now, and even just seeing her in like with The Witcher 3, I actually haven't even like I played it at the time. Well, not like right when it came out, but like pretty quickly after it came out, and like I had not done. I didn't know enough about The Witcher. I had like that was before the show. I hadn't read the book or anything. And but I haven't played it since I read the book, so I really need to like go back and like check that out. And you as you know, I'm interested in like kind of trying the other games, like playing them in order.
Yeah.
Which we tried that last time. But yeah, anyway, well, it's kind of a tangent about The Witcher, but we'll talk about that later. But no, up next on our list, number 17 is Mass Effect.
Mass Effect, yes. I put Mass Effect because it was actually. Man, my time's kind of colliding here. It was either earlier this year or late last year. I bought the 1, 2, and 3 bundle on Steam because I played Mass Effect before, but of course I was just like, oh, okay, cool, yeah. Made my character shot a few of those robots, and I was like, okay. So I think it was so I think it was 3. That was the one I touched, or 2. I think it was 2 actually.
Okay.
Yeah, it was 2 I played, and so I was like, it's time for me to actually go through and play it. I went through, played all the way through Mass Effect 1, started 2, but I was kind of fatigued because I was like, I just finished Mass Effect 1. So I gave myself a break.
Yeah.
But Mass Effect 1 was a really good game. Yeah. I was kind of shocked.
Yeah. I played Mass Effect 1, well, the series basically. Definitely not when they came out because Mass Effect 1 is actually an old game. That game came out in 2007. That is so impressive. Thinking about that, like imagine playing that in 2007. That would have just been absolutely mind blowing. But I played it in like 2018. And I was still very impressed with it. It's obviously a BioWare game, so I had played Knights of the Old Republic first, which was on it. That was kind of like the main game I played on my original Xbox, I will say. So it was like basically going kind of progressing from that, but obviously new their original story and original characters and stuff. But that's interesting. So you still only really played the first one?
Yep, only really played the first one, dabbled in 2.
Okay.
I need to go through and finish 2 and get to 3.
Yeah, because I would be like I love the first one. I would be surprised if you did not put 2 or 3.
Really?
Yeah, probably both of them. You probably like both of them more than one. Like I also kind of took a break after playing Mass Effect 1 for the first time, and I was like, I was like, man, it was like really great. And then when I played Mass Effect 2 for the first time, a little bit after that, I was like, oh man, this just like smokes the first one. And then like even when I played Mass Effect 3, so most people think Mass Effect 2 is the best. Even when I played Mass Effect 3, whenever I did that for the first time, I was like, this might be the best one. Like this might even be better than Mass Effect 2. And now I'm kind of going back like maybe Mass Effect 2 is a little bit better than 3, but they're very close. They do change the gameplay a lot from 1. Like 1, it's definitely like the most RPG of them all, where you like you're getting a lot of points and the kind of level up. And actually, on the new version, they even slow that down a little bit because I think the max level is 30 by default in the new one. but in the old one it was actually 60. So you're leveling up twice as much as you are in the new one. And then like you have like all those, you got like 10 or so things that you can be like putting, maybe more than that you can be putting points in. By the time they went into like Mass Effect 2 and 3, they definitely like streamlined that a lot.
I could tell literally going from 1 to 2, like how they changed like the ammo.
Yeah, that was
the
a big
first
change
one.
as well.
You could just do overheat, cool off, you're good. And then the second one, they're like, oh no, you have thermal clips now. And I was
so
like,
you like
okay,
do your ammo. Yeah, so you reload and stuff. So yeah, I think like hardcore fans of the first one, there are definitely those people that are like, oh, Mass Effect 1's the best one, and that's just all there is to it. But I think most people, and probably you as well, I mean, like 2 is just crazy good. Like you definitely got to play that.
yeah, I'm gonna have to.
There's a case we made that it's like, I don't know if I would put it at the top, but in terms of like the best trilogies in games, like there's a case we made for Mass Effect because like just because they're so interconnected, like choices that you make in the first one absolutely matter. I mean, obviously, as you know, in Mass Effect 1, like not everybody's gonna make it out of Mass Effect 1 alive, and so that's a big choice right there. And then that like continues to be important like through the whole rest of the series. And even like smaller choices that you don't even think about being as important, like doing like some of the side quests and stuff, end up like coming back in like 2 and 3. So like that is like genius, I think. And Mass Effect 1 also was very impressive because it was the first one in the series, so they had to like introduce all that stuff in one game, and I thought they did a good job of that. And I do think Mass Effect 1 and the whole series kind of has the best like atmosphere as well. Like just like doing those side quests, and yeah, they're not like great side quests, obviously. You're mostly just going into like these very samey buildings and taking out some guys. But like just like being on those plants and like the music it plays and like just the way it looks, even though it's like very barren, just man, like that was like very atmospheric, I thought. And like just the way they did the music in the one compared to some of the others in the series, I thought. That's one thing that I would give it the edge to. So, but yeah, you definitely got to try the rest of them.
Yeah, I'll have to. That's probably going to be what I do next. Is go through Mass Effect 2 because I'm not doing anything right now.
Yeah, you'll have to do that. Okay, moving on to number 16, we have Dying Light.
Dying Light, yes. Oh my gosh, I played the heck out of Dying Light.
Okay, so is this something? Was this you were playing this on PC or on console?
On console.
Okay, was this a 360 game or is this Xbox One or PlayStation?
I played it on PlayStation 4.
Okay, that's probably when it came out. Okay, well, this is. I have not played Dying Light. I'm familiar with what it is. So it's like a first person kind of. Is it like kind of got like some parkour elements?
Yes. Yeah, heavy parkour.
Heavy parkour elements. Okay, so yeah, what was it? So are you just kind of into like zombie sort of like stories? Because like obviously you have The Walking Dead. You got this.
The Walking Dead. I have that, and then I think
there might be some more
project. Yeah. So it's like I think I do like zombie stuff, but with Dying Light for me, I was just like a big fan like right off the bat because I was like, oh, this is interesting. Start playing through it, and then you see like because it's not just regular zombies. Nighttime comes around, and then you have what they call the volatiles. Yeah, and the volatiles. My gosh, those were horrifying.
Okay, so like, what did you had to like make a camp or something to like buckle down for the night? Or?
There's like base camps where there's once you get close enough, like the outside perimeter, they have UV lights because the volatiles can't be in the sunlight.
Okay,
but dude, those things are horrifying.
Really?
They're like. I think I still have it, so I have to show you. But those things are rough, and they're fast as hell.
Okay,
faster than you pretty much, and so you're trying to run to get some UV lights, and you're like, oh my gosh.
Okay, that's cool. So is it like a kind of like an open world structure where you're like going around the city? Yeah. Okay,
you're going around the city of I can't remember the name of it,
but whatever. It's
but it's city. It's a fun game. I thought it was interesting because of the parkour. I've never really seen a game use parkour elements, and the fact that there were some guns, but it was mainly melee combat.
Yeah,
for a majority of it.
That does sound cool. There was a game that came out pretty early, I think, in like the PS3 era. Maybe it was on 360 as well. It was called Mirror's Edge, and that was something that I played at the time, but it didn't get like super into. But it's not open world or anything. I think they did eventually make a sequel where that was a little bit more open world, but this was just like very much like going through levels. But it was really leaning into parkour for sure, not zombies, but like and yeah, you weren't really doing combat in that way. You were like kind of running from enemies, and like you would like do like a sneak attack or something, and like just kind of basically you were just trying to like keep your momentum going in that game. But yeah, that sounds cool. There was a second one that came out. Did you try that?
I did.
Oh, so you're not as big a fan of that one.
It's kind of disappointing.
Really?
Which they're still updating it. They've gotten because I think like the biggest gripe for some reason people are like, where are the guns? And I was
Oh.
like, guns. And then they're like, okay, you guys will get guns, maybe. And then I think months passed where people were just like, okay, we're kind of done with the game. They're like, here's guns. I was
Oh.
like, okay.
Yeah, that's the thing about games today. I'm going off on another tangent here, but
No,
like,
you can because it's kind of bad right now.
here's an example. So, you know, I'm a big Star Wars fan. Right now, Reagan and I are actually watching through. So I've shown her all the movies. She was not a Star Wars fan coming into our like. I think she'd seen like. I think she actually worked in a movie theater when The Rise of Skywalker came out.
Okay.
I don't even know if she watched that one, but she definitely watched Force Awakens. But I grew up whenever I was a very young kid. All we had was the originals, baby. And then like when I was like, I mean, I was very young when the prequels started coming out. Like I was 5, I think, when episode 1 came out. So I grew up a fan of those. And then, the new ones came out, and I enjoyed those as well. But like, so I'm a big Star Wars fan, and we are now, even though I've shown Reagan the movies, now we're going through and like watching like all the shows and stuff that are on Disney Plus. So I'm trying to do it. This is something I've always wanted to do and never have done. Like go through it in chronological order from the beginning of the series.
Yeah.
So right now we're in the Clone Wars. It's gonna last a while. Which I've never seen Clone Wars, so that's a new experience for me. But anyway, I was like earlier this year was when we started doing that. So I was like really into Star Wars. I was like, here comes this Star Wars game, Outlaws coming out.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm interested in this. It's a Ubisoft game. I'm going to give pause. And even if I was like, there's no way I was going to buy it at launch because it's a Ubisoft game. So I'm like, it'll probably be sold for $20 here in about a few months. So I'll just wait it out. But that wasn't a game of this from the outside looking in, just kind of keeping up with what people were having issues with in that game. One of them was just like the kind of like insta-fail stealth type thing.
Yeah, I did hear about that.
Where like if you get caught, it's just gotta
Mission
try
over,
again.
you gotta start over.
Whereas like now they've gone back and they've like changed that.
I did hear about that. Yeah,
which that sounds a lot better. But it's like months after the game already came out.
People already played it,
right? Or they've like moved on.
Already done those missions. It's kind of like
so like that would benefit me if I ever go back and play it. But like for people that like I think that they are. I really think that that's a bad trend. Like I think people are.
It's a very bad trend.
I think those companies are screwing themselves more than anybody else with that because like people figure out that there's like a problem or there's like stuff in there that they don't like. They're just gonna drop it and then they're not gonna come back whenever And you at that point you've already kind of like lost all of your chance for to like maybe you'll get like a few sales from it later on, but like the majority of your sales are gonna happen at the beginning.
Because like. All I have to say about it is, yes, if there's a game-breaking bug, if it's something bad that's detrimental that's going to hurt the game, fix it. But if it's something where someone's like, I hate these insta-fail missions, well, it looks like you're just going to have to hate them. Which in that case, yeah, I bet that would be pretty annoying. Because I remember that was in like, what was it, Spider-Man?
Oh yeah,
Spider-Man with
those.
the
they're still in.
Said Gwen Stacy.
Yeah, it was Mary Jane and Miles as well in the first one.
See, it was like. I got tired because I would do them and I would get caught and they were like, oh, you got to start over. So I understand the frustration for that, but there's other games where it's not that bad. Will be like a mechanic that's slightly tough and people are like, this is hard. And they're like, okay, give us a second.
Right.
There you go.
Yeah, it's weird. Like living in like this time where that's like common. There's been a lot of flops recently. I don't know if I would go so far as to call Outlaws a flop, but I guarantee you it did not do as well as like they thought it would. I know Ubisoft's like kind of in trouble right now, and I think they would do a lot better if they would like just know exactly what they wanted their game to be before it came out, and it was like finished. With like in terms of like games with like flops, like we feel like it kind of feels like we're on like a historic roll of them because there was like that Concord thing.
Oh yeah, Concord was. Bad.
Yeah, it's about as big a flop as you can have. And then like there was like before that there was like the Suicide Squad, and before that there was Gotham Knights and like all this. Before that there was Anthem. Like there's just like man, a lot of.
Which honestly, I never really got the hate for Anthem because it's a pretty decent game. I
never played it.
I was kind of shocked that they were like, yeah, we're not gonna be working on this game. It's like, why? It has so much potential, and it was even a fan base was like, no, it's a fun game. And they're like. Yeah, we have other games to work on. Sorry, guys. And it's like, oof.
man.
Okay.
So anyway, that's the kind of the industry that we live in. But then you have your Ghost of Tsushimas on the other hand, where they come out and they're just like, bang, we're ready to go, and then they'll add more stuff after that. Where like they're like, it's like on top of it, it's a bonus. So that's kind of the way that we should be doing, I think. Okay, number 15. This is an interesting pick here. Call of Duty Ghosts.
Dude. Call of Duty Ghosts. I never understood that. Well, okay. I don't want to say never understood the hate. The multiplayer was dog shit.
Oh, that's probably what most people care about.
That's what most people care about. But the campaign on this game was really good.
Okay.
I love that campaign to death. And to this day, I still want them to make a Ghost 2.
Really?
Because they leave it off on a cliffhanger, and it's like, because you're watching the credits and then it cuts to that cliffhanger and you're like, what? Wait, what? There's going to be a Ghost 2? Let's go. And then they're like, no more Ghost stuff. It's like, huh?
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. So, anytime someone's picking a interesting choice in the series like Ghost, we got to talk about your history with the series. So, like, had you played, like, what's your experience with Call of Duty? When did you get into it?
What was it? The World at War.
Okay.
Call of Duty World
That's pretty back. That's like, that was like 2008, I think.
So I would play, of course, Black Ops.
Okay.
I played Black Ops 1 and 2.
Okay.
A little bit of 3. It was kind of like, it was going into like techie stuff. So I was like, okay,
right.
Cool. But leading up to that, I played a little bit of Call of Duty. So I was like, okay, Call of Duty Ghosts seems cool. And then they had like that whole Eminem song and stuff.
And Ghosts?
Yeah, it was like, I can't remember the name but it was on a commercial. And I was like, seems like this is going to be interesting. Started playing it, and like they had that, which still don't know why Call of Duty hasn't tried it again since that campaign map where you're in space and you're an astronaut and you're on like the space station.
Yeah, I think that was like Infinite Warfare.
No, this was
in Ghost.
This was in Ghost. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So before that.
So what happened is like you're sitting there talking with your dad and your brother, and I think you're in LA, but they cut between that and go up top and you're on the space station and you're like, hey, you're US.
Oh.
You're like, hey, we need to get in here. And then I think it was Russia. They're like taking over and they're like, oh shit. And so they have like guns in space and you're actually like on the space station shooting. And I was like, this is cool.
Yeah, that is cool.
And they're trying to stop like this death laser from going, I think it's called Odin. Yeah, they're like trying to fire Odin at the US and they stopped it, but of course they died in space. But I was like, that was a cool little map. And of course, then it's like apocalyptic pretty much after that.
Yeah.
But I was actually surprised. Ghost is a really good, which I should say Call of Duty for the most part with their campaigns. I enjoy their campaigns.
Okay.
Multiplayer, on the other hand, I play multiplayer, but that's...
It's no Titanfall too.
No, not even close.
Okay. And then, so Ghost was like right at the beginning of the PS4 generation.
Mm-hmm.
So did you, like, have you still stuck with the series out of that where you played like the campaign since then?
Yeah.
Okay.
I played Modern Warfare 2.
To 2019.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I played Modern Warfare 2019, Modern Warfare 2, and Modern Warfare 3, the most recent ones.
Yes.
I played the campaign for 2. Loved the campaign. Stuck around a little bit for the multiplayer. And then 3, I said I wasn't going to get it because Call of Duty has kind of done this thing now where they're trying to be Fortnite in the sense where like they had Snoop Dogg, they had like a weed skin, like they just had
skin.
Yeah, it was like just a massive weed thing, and I'm like, okay, and it's like I miss the Call of Duty where it was more about like military gear and more grounded.
Gotcha.
It's all like you can play as Godzilla. It's very fantastical at this point now where it's basically a more high-res version of Fortnite. And so I was like, I'm not going to do 3. But I said, you know what? I'm going to give it a chance. So I did the pre-order so I can play the campaign first.
Okay.
Call of Duty campaigns take you around 4 hours.
Yeah.
Sometimes. I finished Modern Warfare 3 within, was it barely 3 hours?
Oh, okay.
And it wasn't the best. And I said, nope, refund. So I finished the campaign and refunded within the same day.
Yeah.
So that kind of tells you how I felt about it.
All right. So it's going downhill a little bit.
Yeah. And then they had Black Ops 6. My aunt,
yeah, is that the new one?
Yeah, she's been playing the heck out of that. And she's like,
your aunt has been playing?
Yes.
Oh, that's awesome.
Because she played Rainbow Six Siege. That was her game.
Oh my God, that's like a hardcore game to be into.
It is. But she plays. She's been playing 6, and she was like, "Come on, you should get it, and we can hop on zombies." And I said, "Jordan, I'm not paying $69
Yeah.
for this hot garbage game."
Yeah. That's interesting. She brings up the zombies though. Like I would expect, being the zombie fan that you are, would be because like that's not in Ghost, right?
And that's the crazy thing. I'm gonna say this. It's gonna sound controversial.
Okay.
I never liked the Call of Duty.
Oh, okay. Very interesting. I think that was Black Ops did that.
It was Black Ops.
See, I know about Call of Duty, but for me, I've played. Okay, way back in the day, my friend, the one that I screwed for the Zelda stuff, he had Call of Duty Big Red 1 on the GameCube. This is back when all the war games were World War II, and that was it. Played a little bit of that. Before that, I had played Medal of Honor on the PS2. A little bit, but didn't really get super into it. And then I remember reading Game Informer, and like there was like a cover story before Modern Warfare came out, and like I remember reading that, and I was like, there was no way I was gonna be able to play because my mom was really strict about what I could play at that time. But I was just like, yeah, that's genius. That's a smart move to like make it more modern or whatever. And obviously, ended up being gigantic. And I have since gone back and I've played like the first couple campaign levels of the original Modern Warfare, but. Other than that, that's it. Like I've never played any really gotten into Modern Warfare, and it's interesting because I love Halo. But what I really like about it is like the scope of the levels, great mission design, a lot of variety of weaponry, obviously because it's sci-fi, so you can do a little bit more with it. So for me, just being like a fan of campaigns like that, I know that we need to play more Halo Reach so you can kind of get a feel for what it's like, but. What do you think would be like would you say Ghost is like the best Call of Duty campaign? Like if I was like trying to get into a Call of Duty campaign, I have no idea like where I should start realistically.
Okay, so me personally, I would say go with Ghost, but that's just me,
Right?
Because it's its own isolated thing. Like, of course, it's Call of Duty, but it's its own little story.
Yeah.
Because Black Ops. You have to go through Black Ops 1, 2, 3, which are all connected, and that's, pretty time consuming. And then you have Modern Warfare, which is the original Modern Warfares, and then now you have the updated Modern Warfares.
Yes.
I would say Ghost, if you want to play a campaign, go for Ghost, because it's a good campaign.
Okay. Cool. All right, moving on to number 14 now. We have Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain.
It's crazy to say that was not the first time I played a Metal Gear Solid game, but the first time I sat down and played like fully through a Metal Gear Solid game, because I played the original.
The original,
yeah, and I was like, "What the hell?"
Yeah, it is weird as hell.
By the original, I mean like the PlayStation leading into PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2. But that one was rough.
Yes,
kid.
Agreed. That's the only one that I've played at all, and because it's kind of held up as like this legendary game in history. I'm sure at the time it was really awesome, but yeah, it is a weird game, that first one for sure.
Which, in a sense, I wanted them to remake that one. If I'm being honest,
they probably will sometime. I know they did.
Of course, I know they did 3 because
I think it's like
popular.
Yeah, and I think it's also earlier in the timeline.
It is.
So I guess that kind of makes sense. I bet they will do the first one though.
But yeah, Metal Gear Solid 5. Going into it. I played there was like a little
I know what you're talking about, yeah.
I think it was Ground Zero. Yeah. I played that and I was like, this seems interesting. I'll give it a try. So then I started playing the real game and I was pleasantly surprised because all I had known about Metal Gear Solid at the time was the original one.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I'll give it a try. And then playing that's what led me into, 3 and 2.
Oh, and then you've just gone back and played those?
I went back.
Oh, wow.
Then they did like the whole
Yes.
Because I'm gonna be honest with you, I had it on my the Vita.
That's right. Yeah. That's pretty cool.
I was like, okay. But then Steam was like, hey, we're doing a collection thing because we're releasing re-release or doing a remake. And so I got that one, which there's only one Metal Gear Solid game I have not actually gone into and actually played, and it's 4. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, very interesting. So So this is a series that I've not played other than my brief time with the first one. And I do think as a PlayStation fan from the PS1, this is probably the series that's like the biggest that I have not played. As a PlayStation fan, you would think that I would have played one at some point.
Right.
Part of that was just because, like I said, my mom was very strict about what I played. But I always from the outside, what would you compare it to? Because They always seemed like very unique to me. Like just like from the outside looking in, it didn't really seem like there was like much else that
You're
is similar to
you're right.
okay.
They're all very unique in the sense of like the original. It's very stealth based
Right.
stuff, but then you go into let's say three. Three is also stealth based stuff, but it's more you can get into combat a little bit easier than in one. And then five is just like a, which I think that's what they're gonna do with the remake is make it more like five. But
Sure.
five is open world,
Okay.
and in the sense of you go in Afghanistan and you're picking up soldiers, you're literally just either knocking them out or killing them. But when you knock them out, you can scan them with like your little iDroid. That's what they call it, the iDroid thing.
Okay.
And you can see their stats, and they have certain stats, and you're like, oh, these stats are high enough. You can put a little Fulton balloon on them and shoot them back up. Yeah, and you take them back to your base, and they either become like an actual combat soldier that you can use in missions now, or like let's say they're R&D, like you making certain weapons or
Mhm.
rockets and stuff. This guy has like he's an S rank in R&D. You take him back and put him on your R&D team, and you can make certain new things. The thing also is like you have to factor in like their attitude and stuff because a lot of times there'll be people breaking out in fights and so they get thrown in the brig.
Okay.
So then that kind of diminishes what's going on with you. So let's say I wanted to make this certain AK, I can't right now because Tommy over here just beat up somebody and now he's in the brig.
Yeah.
So you can either go out and find someone who has same level skill or higher, or get multiple people of a lower rank to boost you to
Sure.
that point to get new equipment.
Wow, that sounds awesome.
It's a really fun game. I was shocked, but the thing is about that game, I love it to death. It just feels unfinished.
Mm.
It really does. Cause like I played the last mission and I went, "Where's the next mission?" Because there wasn't like because after each mission there's like a credit scene, like a little short credit scene where they show who worked on it and whatnot and who's
Oh,
voice acting.
that's
And
interesting.
so credits play after almost each story mission. So I played that final one and I was like, okay, where's the next one? Because we gotta get to a conclusion. Nothing.
Wow.
I was like, what? So I was kind of lost in that, and they were talking about how, and then that's when I got into the history of what was going on
Yes.
behind the scenes with Kojima and
Uh-huh.
Konami, and I was like, okay, it's making a little more sense now.
Wow. I did not know that. I didn't realize I guess again, like
Mhm.
nobody that I really have talked to has played the Metal Gear
Mhm.
game. So like I didn't realize that it was like kind of I knew about the Kojima stuff, but I didn't
Mhm.
know that it would like impacted Metal Gear Solid 5.
It really did. People say it doesn't, and even Kojima himself is like, "Oh no, it's a finished product." But if you ever play it, you're gonna realize you're gonna be like, "This isn't 100%."
Very interesting. Yeah, it's a series that I definitely feel like I should check out. Is it, I know that with Kojima, I don't think I've ever played any of his games, so but everybody kind of talks about how he's like kind of like this weirdo genius or whatever. Is it like weird with Metal Gear games?
Yes,
Okay.
I will say that because like of course it's goofy stuff going on, but like you'll find like it'll be kind of like Devil May Cry. It's
Okay.
very similar to the sense of like it'll be dead serious, and then you're on a mission and there's a dude pooping in a porta potty and he's
Yeah, yeah.
and you get an achievement for like listening in on him pooping.
Yeah.
Or like
Okay.
there's like an old man character and Kaz, he's from the older ones. They're sitting there talking about making the perfect hamburger,
Mm.
as they're supposed to be talking about, how there's a parasite that latches onto people's vocal cords and kills them for talking English. They're sitting here talking about making the perfect hamburger.
Yeah, yeah.
It's stuff like that. Like I will say Kojima does have some like five brain stuff going on that he's
Uh-huh.
trying to pull off. But a lot of times his humor is very goofy.
Okay, cool. But yeah, I definitely that's another one. It's pretty high on my list. I don't know if it's as high, like Civilization. That really sounds amazing in terms of the ones that we talked about so far. I think it's probably
Yeah,
one of the
Civ,
most
we
interested
definitely
in.
need to play Civ
Yeah, yeah,
together.
yeah, yeah. But Metal Gear Solid would definitely be up there. Okay, moving on to number 13 now. Life is Strange, another narrative kind of choice based
Yes,
game.
yes. That's the thing. I didn't even play Life is Strange initially. I was watching YouTube videos, no commentary YouTube videos of it. I just fell in love with that game, like the
Really?
aesthetic, the style, and the narrative in general. I was like, this is a good story.
No, yeah.
And I think that's another thing that really gets people. Like my mom, I don't want to say she hates video games, has never touched a video
Right.
game. Every time I'm like, hey, try this, and I cannot get her to do it. And I know there's people like that,
Oh yeah.
And like they have this weird stigma on games where games are only like Call of Duty shooters or action. But like Life is Strange or The Walking Dead, those are really good stories. And of
Yes.
course, since they're not in book form or movie form, people are like, no, thank you.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And we are kind of finally starting to see where, and I think The Last of Us is probably the best example, where finally it is like they're actually making some quality
Mhm.
stuff based on it. And the people are
It's
like,
great to
and
see.
like people are like really into it, right? They don't even necessarily know that's from a game,
And then when you say that, they're like, what?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's cool. Life is Strange. And so I mentioned earlier, I really like this style of game. I have not played Life is Strange. I think part of that is just like this from the outside looking in. Obviously, I don't really know much about it, but it just kind of seemed like I don't know, like a girl teen drama
It
thing.
really is kind of a
So
girl teen
I was
drama.
like, I don't know, like as a 30-year-old, if I could really get into this. But again, I know my cousin Brett is really into it. So like, as a fan of like these style of games, you think that I should give it a shot?
See, that's a hard one. I want to say yes, and that's only because I know how I was like. I started and I was like, okay, and then like the opening scene happens, and there's like a song playing in the background, and I was like, I've never heard this song before. It's like a nice song. It was like I think it's To All of You,
Okay.
and after that song, I was kind of hooked, and I was like, I'm gonna keep watching. But it really is. I would compare it to like a teen soap opera in a sense, but she has superpowers.
Right.
That's the only difference.
Right. It seems like something that Reagan could really get into. So maybe we'll have to try it together. Because like I said, this is her favorite style game. But you have it above The Walking Dead. So
I do.
is that like based on like the story and characters?
Yes,
Or okay.
based on story and characters, 100%.
Okay.
Because you get to see a lot more. Like, of course, you get in The Walking Dead. It's more of a different climate because it's apocalyptic.
Very
So of
different,
course, everyone's going to be either harsh or awful or trying to be kind. But
Right.
comes off weird. But in this, it's just modern day people being.
Yes.
Which that's pretty for it to be like looking like you said on the outside looking in. It does look like a teen thing, but it honestly, I would say it's more targeted towards adults too.
Okay.
It could be some serious stuff going on. I was like, okay.
Okay. And then obviously the series has continued, and I think they just did.
They did Life is Strange 2. I don't think it was as well received as the first one.
But like even like this year, they did like there was something that came out that was like a sequel or whatever.
Life is Strange.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like
it was like a direct sequel from.
That's
Life
what I
is
thought.
Strange.
That's what I thought. Like,
instead of like those little side stories.
Yeah,
that they
yeah.
released.
So have you like tried any of these?
I actually haven't tried.
Well, so just the
side
first
story.
one.
Yeah, just the first. So
that's interesting.
Well, also because I'm not gonna say anything because you might play it. So
okay,
I'll save it
fair
for
enough.
later.
Fair enough.
If you ever do pick it up, I'll tell you.
Okay, we can revisit. Okay, moving on to number 12, a game that I have played, but only because of you. Darkest Dungeon.
I love Darkest Dungeon.
So had you played it much before?
I played it,
or you like kind of had just got into it when we tried it?
Around the time I probably played it for like a month before I was like came over and was like Darkest Dungeon.
Yeah, because you were talking about how great it was. So basically it's like a turn-based combat, kind of more in the style of like a regular JRPG where you have like just a group of 4 or whatever, and you're just going through these dungeons, but there's permadeath.
Yeah.
And so like that kind of and what you come up against like in the dungeons is very difficult because like there's obviously a lot of enemies in there, but then there's like the
light,
the darkness and like the afflictions and like all this stuff, and you got that guy, that voice is hilarious.
His voice is hilarious, dude. But the thing that got me was because I was playing it and I was like, it says the darker it is, the more loot I can get. So I went through and I was going through a dungeon with no light whatsoever.
Oh man!
And I started. The enemies were harder, but then this boss came out of nowhere, and it was like just like this eldritch abomination, and it was too hard to beat. And I was like, I'm not doing that again.
Wow!
So there's a lot to that game.
That's awesome. And like, so obviously I played the first few hours, and you were there for it. I loved it. I loved what I played. So does it like change a lot after like that? Like, there's like more going on beyond kind of what I saw.
Beyond what you saw,
or
I wouldn't say 100%. Like, of course, there's boss fights that have cool little things that
I don't even know did we even get to any boss fights?
We didn't get to any boss fights, but they have like their little gimmicks and stuff that they do. They're kind of cool. But that team does a pretty good job. I think Red Hook. Yeah, because they already have two already.
Did you try it? Have you tried that?
Not really. Okay. I have it, and I probably played a total of 30 minutes. And I was like, I'm gonna put this down because I know it wasn't finished yet.
Right. Is it finished now?
I don't know. They released DLC, and they're gonna release another DLC really soon.
Okay.
Because people were like, where's the knight? I think it's Randall, the guy, the knight who was in the front in one that you saw. He wasn't there in the second one. They're
Got
like,
it.
where is he? And then they made a DLC where they added a new character and brought him back. And they're like,
Yeah, because but like for the most part, they're just the characters that you're building up are just
Mhm.
right. Like I mean, like they have different. What would you call them? Like skills, I guess.
Yeah,
Like, they're kind of different archetypes.
skills or buffs and debuffs. Yeah.
Yeah, because like you had like the witch doctor mask guy, and then like you had like the kind of more typical fighters. And
Yeah.
stuff. You kind of like had to build your party for when you go out, and then like you kind of have to rest them because like they are scarred from their experience in the dungeon.
And I thought that was cool too. Where
Yeah, that's cool.
Like let's say the knight character, he starts off with like a klepto debuff.
Oh,
So
right.
you can go up to a thing to go to loot it, but he'll be like, actually, I'm gonna go first, and he'll take everything out of the bag, and you get nothing from it
Yeah,
because
that's
he's
right.
a klepto.
That's right. Yes, they have like their own like flaws.
Mhm.
Very, very cool game. Like I gotta play more of that. I actually the main thing that made me not go back to it right away is well, first of all, I've always got like way too many things I'm playing.
Oh yeah.
But I actually bought it on the Vita. Well, technically when I bought it, I got both versions. So I can play it on the Vita, and like that seems awesome to like just have it like on the go like that. So I think that's probably where I'm gonna do it. But yeah, that I love what I played for sure. It was very addicting.
I will say the majority of the time I play it is on my Steam Deck on the go.
Right. The only thing that I would say is like those are some weird controls with the menu navigation.
Yeah, it is
like
weird.
you were like
Even
trying to
when I'm on
explain
Steam,
me how to
it's
do
like,
something. I
what
was
the
like,
hell?
what are you talking about? So yeah,
No, they are crazy.
Those are definitely crazy. Okay, moving on to number 11 now. This is a game I don't know a ton about, but I have definitely heard of it. This War of Mine.
Okay, so first time I played this War of Mine was on mobile.
Okay,
Like
on a phone.
Yeah,
Okay.
I bought it on my phone. Actually, no, I think it was an iPod at the time. So
Wow.
this is like when it was first, like not even a massive thing, I would say. I was more so I was moved by the message of like,
Oh,
this is war. You're not a superhero. You're not a soldier. You're a civilian trying to survive. And they even like released DLC where instead of it being, for adults, it could be 2 adults and 2 kids.
right.
And it's like this. It's just eye opening to see because I know I think when like the Ukraine war started, they like put that game on like a deep sale. Like it was like 99 cents on Steam because they're like, you guys need to play this to see. You gamers, of course, because most people
gamers.
Yeah, pretty much that's what it was like. It's
Instead
like,
of Call of Duty.
you guys need to play this. And it just opens your eyes to like people actually go through this. This is not a this is a game you're playing, but then like let's say like your first night, there's this empty house. You can click on it and you go to the empty house. It's supposed to be empty. You open the door, it's elderly. Oh my gosh, I can't talk. Elderly couple.
Okay.
And they're like, hey, you need to get out of here. Of course, they don't attack you. They're elderly.
Just people, yeah.
And so you then either leave or you go. You have 3 options basically. You go in, see them, leave, but then you have nothing to bring back to the people at your house.
Mm-hmm.
You go in, loot everything, take their food, take their medicine, leave, and then that character is obviously like, man, I'm an awful person. Then they get depressed. If they get depressed, they can most likely off themselves. But
really?
Yeah.
And you don't have any control over that.
You don't have any control over how they feel about what you do as the player because they're their own people also. But, or 3, you can kill them and still loot their stuff and then make the character feel even worse.
Okay, so like is it in terms of the gameplay style, is it like how does it work? Or is it like kind of like you're clicking on stuff and then you're telling like Sim style where you're like telling them to do things, or like is there direct control?
There's kind of like a direct control, but I would say it's closer to the Sim style. Where like, let's say there's a pile of rubble. It'll have like 2 options where you can dig it out by hand or you can dig it with a shovel. You can click the bubble and the character will go up and do it. But once it goes into like the scavenging part, like at nighttime, you kind of have a little more control where you actually like move them around. And there's like a little, like let's say there's like your kitchen, for example. Let's say it's 2D. I'm going this way. I can hide in the bathroom right there, and the character walking won't be able to see me because I'm like in like the darkness.
Okay.
So that was cool concept, trying to make sure you didn't die.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so like if you got caught by that guy, then what would happen? Is there like a combat system?
There's a combat system where you can either take him out from the shadows and stab him, or you can just full on try to fight him in the open. But if he has a gun, you're getting shot and you don't want to get shot.
Right. And then is it like, do you have So you mentioned like it's like 4 characters. Do you
Mhm.
like get other characters, or is it, or are you just sticking with these guys
I
the whole time?
think you can get more, but for the most part, what I remember, it was just those four.
Okay.
So like
So then if they're killed, then that's just
that's it, and you only have three.
okay.
And like people get sick. Like the guy
Oh,
can get sick, so then it's like, do you prioritize the sick guy, get him meds, and let him sleep? But then the guy who's been scavenging all night won't have a bed because you didn't build a second bed. So
okay.
now he's tired and he won't be able to scavenge the next day. So then you have nothing to show for it. And then you can also get raided by other civilians throughout the night while you're scavenging if you don't put someone on guard.
Okay. And then like when it all goes south and people die, then you just have to like start over to
Pretty much,
like
if
a
all of
roguelike,
them die,
basically.
it's over. You got to start fresh.
Interesting. And then like is your goal is just like to survive a certain amount of time
Yep,
or
survive for a certain amount of time. Once that time ends, it's like you did it.
wow. Okay. Very cool. Yeah, I'll have to check that out. I think it's another one where I have it on console.
But you just never got around
Yeah,
to
but
it.
it's like, I didn't even really know anything about it. I might have got it like through Plus or something, or maybe it was just like something
I think
got
it
on a
was
cheap
on
sale.
Plus.
Yeah, so I didn't know much about it. And I sure as don't know. I literally, okay, in terms of everything on your list, I haven't at least heard of it except for number 10, which is Project Zomboid.
Project Zomboid, that is such a good game.
Okay.
I've like sad to say like 800 hours dumped into that.
Wow.
It's okay. Art style wise, it kind of reminds me of like The Sims 2.
Okay.
It looks, I hate to say bad, but bad.
Like a PS2 game.
Yeah, it looks bad. But mechanic wise, I haven't seen a game this, I would say, immersive in a while. We're like, okay, let's say we play multi because it's multiplayer capable, but you can also play single player.
Okay.
But let's say you go up and you go to break a window. You break the window, but if you don't have a melee weapon or something in your hand, your guy uses his elbow. So then you get a cut on your hand or forearm or whatever.
Okay.
You got to make sure to disinfect it, bandage it, because if not, it's going to get infected. Then your character gets sick. If your
Okay.
character gets sick, then they start actually audibly coughing or sneezing. And I don't think you want to do that in a zombie apocalypse. So
Okay.
you got to make sure that you find some vitamins and medicine to, get them feeling better. And in the meantime, they give you the mechanic of where if you find a tissue, if you have it in your inventory, it'll muffle it.
Okay.
And so it's just like a really deep thing where like it shows your whole body. So like you broke the glass. Let's say you go to jump through the window. If you didn't clear out the broken glass on the edges, you'll get like a huge gash in your hand and glass shards in your hand. And then you have to find tweezers. It's an open world game. You have to find tweezers, pull them out, stitch it up, bandage it.
Okay.
Same thing with bullets, which is like, and plus they've even added a system where you can, like, let's say we're playing multiplayer and I'm like, hey man, can I have that AK-47 you have? And you're like, no. I'm like, okay. 2 days later, I come back and I'm like, here, I made you a cake. You can poison food and give it to people. And I'm like, what's the point of that? But it's, for immersive games, I would say it's pretty immersive. Like look wise, not so much, but actual gameplay, pretty shocked at what they do.
Okay. Wow. That sounds very interesting. Now, is this just like how did you get into this? Because this is a game that even like I know a lot of games. Even I have like never even heard of this. Was this just like a random Steam thing or
Steam thing?
Okay.
I literally was just on Steam going around. And I was like, Project Zomboid. And I read the description, saw it had positive reviews, and I was like, I'll give it a try. And since that day, I don't want to say number one Steam game, but I love that game a lot.
Okay. Yeah, very interesting. So this goes all the way back to looks like 2011.
It's still in early access.
Still in what?
Yes.
Latest stable build is build 41, released in December 2021.
They just released the unstable build 42.
Okay.
And when I mean just, I mean like 3-4 days ago.
Wow.
And I started playing that, and I was like, "Oh yeah, this is good." It just doesn't have multiplayer yet because it's a small team working on it.
Wow, what a weird game.
I know.
That is. Here's like look at this. I've like built up like a timeline of like all the different builds that they've done here on Wikipedia. Okay. Wow. Project Zomboid. It does sound cool. Like in terms of like immersive. Is it like kind of top down view? Because like that
isometric.
Okay, yeah, isometric. Yeah. All right. So like let's see, what have I played that would be similar to this? Not much. I guess like they call the what's the Dishonored team? Dishonored. They call those like immersive sims. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I never played Dishonored, but I did play Deathloop.
Because I know they did have that one because I got it on Steam. It was like 79 cents. Their previous work, it was like older. I think it was like Arx Fatalis or something
Okay.
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what they call, or Deus Ex. That's what they love to call
Oh,
an
Deus Ex.
immersive,
Yeah.
immersive sim.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I've heard the original Deus Ex and Masterpiece. I actually have it on PS2, believe it or
Really?
not. Yeah, which is like kind of weird because it's mostly a PC game, but
Mm.
they did a console port on PS2, and I haven't played it. But I think that was like kind of like a big inspiration for like even like your Fallouts and stuff that came out after that. So it's a pretty important game. Yeah, that kind of stuff does sound cool. And so I'm assuming there's not like a ton of like story, like
Not
driving
yet.
things.
That's the thing. They're working. That's what
Sure.
got me was like the fact that they're working for this long. Because like that update they did added a ton of new mechanics and I say a ton, a decent amount of new mechanics and a lot of new like items for you to use. Like instead of you going up to a car and using like one of those red gas cans, because before you could just go up and siphon gas with just the gas can. Now you have to use a rubber hose to siphon gas out of cars. That see, I lost my train of thought.
Well, I guess like listening to you describe it, like there's like and I haven't played much of this either, but way back in the day, I tried State of Decay, which kind of sounds a little bit similar,
Yeah,
where it's obviously a zombie game, and then there's kind of like it has like permadeath with the characters, I think, but like you're kind of trying to go around and just like basically.
If
just
I had to
survive.
compare it, it's a more detailed State of Decay.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it sounds very interesting. Okay, number 9. This is a game that I have heard of and played extensively. Red Dead Redemption 2. Kind of hard to argue with that one. It's kind of a wild transition to go from Project Zomboid to Red Dead Redemption 2.
Go from pixels to beautiful.
Yeah. I don't really think there's probably a person walking the earth that can kind of argue with Red Dead 2 at this point. It's just
if you hate Red Dead 2, you're just being a hater. I
Well,
don't know what else to say.
It's interesting because I remember when it came out in 2018. Did you play it like right when it came out?
Mhm.
Okay, me too. I remember actually like that night, like online, like I had like gotten a physical copy, and I was like, it was back when I was working in Henderson, Texas, and I was working as a sports reporter then, and I remember like going to have like cover this football game or whatever, and it's like, man, as soon as this is over, I'm gonna be playing some Red Dead Redemption 2. That's gonna be awesome. And I did, and I played the hell out of it. But I remember when it came out in 2018. A lot of the game of the year, like the Game Awards, or whatever, went to God of War, not Red Dead Redemption 2. And I remember like the big criticism of Red Dead 2 at that point was like it's overly realistic with like kind of how slow everything is and stuff like that. But I feel like since then it's just I don't know. I don't really hear that anymore. You know what I mean?
Because the initial hate I heard was people being like, "I want John Marston."
Yeah, well, everybody
they were like,
shut their
they
mouths
started
on that.
playing it, and they're like, I want Arthur.
Yeah. I mean, I did play the. Did you play the original?
I didn't at the time.
Okay.
No.
Do you have since?
I played a little bit. Yeah.
Okay. So like, I obviously played the original. I think it was around the same time when I played Mass Effect for the first time, so like 2018. And so it was that I knew Red Dead 2 was coming. That might have been what pushed me over the edge to play. I knew it was a game that I wanted to try, because
I knew of Red Dead Redemption,
it's
seen clips,
game.
but I've never actually. I didn't play at the time. I started with 2, which it's a prequel, so
right, exactly. So it's no problem. Like with Reagan, we played the Red Dead 2, and I have not shown a Red Dead 1 yet. Because it's like
right.
It's like that's the beginning of the story, so and it's better anyway. So, but yeah, so I played the original Red Dead, and I did like John Marston a lot. And I will say, like, just from the trailers and stuff, I was like, I don't know if this guy's gonna be as good as John Marston.
And then you start playing it.
Yeah, he honestly, like, if I was like making a list of like the greatest video game characters, Arthur Morgan might be number 1.
Yeah, he's high up there for me too.
Yeah,
he's pretty. What do you think about Dutch?
Oh, I love Dutch.
Going from because I did see clips of him in 1.
Yeah, he's in 1. So like in 1, he's like pretty unhinged. Like he's like kind of like
I got a plan, Arthur.
Yeah, he doesn't even like to talk about like having a plan. Like he's just like kind of like this crazy guy, and it's kind of it's clear from the way they interact with John Marston that like they've got some history.
Yeah.
But like seeing him in Red Dead 2, that was really interesting.
Like, oh.
I think he's an all-time great character as well. Like especially in terms of like just like video game villains. Like he doesn't get much better than Dutch for sure.
I remember when that game people kept quoting Dutch.
Oh yeah, because he had a plan.
We're gonna go to Tahiti, Arthur.
Yeah, Tahiti. Oh man, there's so much good stuff with the two of them. I love there's like so many like little moments with Arthur and Dutch as well. Like I remember there's like toward the end, they're like on the rocks at this point, but you go into that cave where they live. They end up living toward the end, and like there's like this girl that's like in there, and she's like been taken from like there's like these like kind of crazy
people
living in there, and like you like get her out of there and take her home or whatever. And then like Dutch like Arthur's walking in, Dutch is like, well, where have you been? And he's like, oh, I found a girl and took her home. And he goes, oh. Just like a little moment like that, you know, or like whenever they become the sheriffs, the deputies or whatever in that southern town, and like just like all the funny interactions that come with that, where he's just like, finally we've come to a land that's so stupid that we are like geniuses.
It was so crazy, and like the whole time, like Arthur absolutely hating Micah, and everyone's like,
Oh yeah.
you got to get Micah out of jail.
Oh
It's
man.
like, no.
Yeah, he doesn't want
Let his
to.
ass stay there.
Right. Yeah, so much good stuff. Honestly, like in terms of games that could be made into like an extremely popular television show. I don't like The Last of Us is a good one. That's a good example.
Red
But
Dead.
Red Dead Redemption too. I
There's
mean,
so much they could pull from it.
that could go on for like seasons and seasons of content with Red Dead Redemption.
My gosh, that'd be amazing.
It is a masterpiece. I think there's a case to be made. I don't know if I would put it at number one best story games, but there's a case to be made for it. Certainly possible. Some of the best characters. You could argue the best open world in a video game. Definitely the best depiction of like nature and wildlife in the game.
100%.
No question, it's number one. And like the fact that like all that is just like kind of going on in the background and like you don't even have to pay attention to it, or you can like to get like the platinum, you have to like which I've not done, but you have to like study all the animals and like like skin most of them and like all that stuff. Like there's just like so much. It's like the greatest hunting game of all time. It's not even like a hunting game. You know what I mean?
You can turn it into a hunting simulator.
Yeah, it's just like so much stuff in that game. And then like it's got some of the greatest moments, like that scene where they all walk up to that manor. You know that those people are like fucked. And they've taken the kid. That is so good.
That was such a beautiful.
That's like
shot.
up there with like greatest video game moments as well. And like Dutch is just standing out there. He knows that they're about to just massacre those people.
Where's the boy?
Yeah, and like that's such a good moment too, because like everybody kind of watches out for that kid, and then like they come into camp, and then they're just like the boy's gone, and then
Javier and
every single one of them is like, let's go, and like every single person in the group except for like Micah is like on their horse on the way to that freaking mansion. Holy crap, that is so good.
Yeah, beautiful game.
It's one of the greatest of all time for sure. Now, obviously, their more popular series is Grand Theft Auto. Are you like a Grand Theft Auto fan as well?
I played San Andreas. I played 4.
Okay.
And I've played 5.
Okay.
I have mixed feelings about Grand Theft Auto. It's a fun game, don't get me wrong, but once the whole I can do anything dies down, it's kind of like okay.
Yeah, at the time, so I obviously was for sure not allowed to play Grand Theft Auto when I was a kid. When they were like very popular. My experience with that, because like that was a thing for sure. Like the first time that you experienced an open world game back in the day, that was a big deal.
To that scale, you're like, whoa.
And so my version of that was Jack 2. So like the sequel of Jack and Daxter, because like they were like very much copying Grand Theft Auto, because like Grand Theft Auto 3 I think came out like the same year as Jack and Daxter 1, and like suddenly everybody was like, all the kids were like playing Grand Theft Auto and they weren't supposed to, and they were like, well, we need to be like making something like this. So they made like a hard pivot for Jack and Daxter. Like the other games this series are nothing like the first one, where it's just like a collectathon platform. And then like there's a city and you can go around, like you can steal cars and stuff, and Jack 2, and like that was the first time where I was like, oh my god, this is amazing. So I never really had that experience with Red Dead or with Grand Theft Auto. So by the time I played Grand Theft Auto, it was I didn't really care about like the open world stuff as much. I mean, like it's cool for sure.
Yeah, it's cool, but it dies out after a while.
Yeah, so I just played them for like the stories and stuff. And yeah, they're nowhere near as good as Red Dead Redemption. I agree.
Not even close.
Yeah,
be real with you.
But what's your hype level for 6?
Okay, so when the trailer dropped for 6, I was super hyped.
Yeah,
and now my hype is kind of dying down, because I was like, it's probably going to be, it's obviously, hopefully going to be better than 5, but other than that, I don't think it's going to be, like, of course, everyone's going to play it.
Yeah.
Because literally, companies are like, we're not confirming a 2025 release date until GTA 6 does.
I'm not even convinced that GTA 6 is going to make 2025.
I don't think it is, man, because like,
they said they are, but
they haven't
given a date, though.
Mm-mm.
And that must suck to be like, if you're like really one of those companies that's trying to like avoid that, you don't even know when it's coming. It's like a nuclear bomb waiting to get off.
It really is, because you could lose, the company could go under because that game underperformed. So it's like, let's not release near GTA 6 whatsoever.
Yeah, it's like, I was trying to like with Reagan, because I actually just showed her the beginning of Grand Theft Auto 4 a few days ago, like for the first time.
Really?
Yeah, because I thought if there was because she loves Red, if she really liked Red Dead 2, I was like, if there's any Grand Theft Auto that she would be interested in at all, the best chance is 4, because it's like kind of a more grounded story with Nico and stuff. And so I showed it to her, and she was like, she liked it okay. It's not really.
Yeah, it was all right.
But I was like, I don't know if I can explain to you how successful and famous Grand Theft Auto 6 is going to be. I was like, what's the most famous thing that you can think of? Like, what do you think in terms of YouTube? What do you think would have like the most views? She was like, I don't know, something by Taylor Swift. I was like, all right, let's look up Cruel Summer by Taylor Swift. It had like 220 million views. GTA 6 trailer, like 227. So it's like right,
GTA,
like
we know it's gonna be nasty.
And Grand Theft Auto 5 was huge at the time. Like when it came out, it was like so big, and it's obviously been big since then. But yeah, GTA 6,
it's gonna be the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Hopefully it does come out in 2025, because I will say I'm gonna play it.
Oh yeah.
But I'm just, my hype kind of died down.
It'll go back
some
up.
time where I'm like,
it'll go back up whenever it's coming close.
They're gonna do it justice. I feel like it's Rockstar, but people get to. So what it is now, it's like everyone depends on graphics. It's like,
right.
Oh, it has good graphics.
Sure.
I need to see some gameplay.
I need to see some story. What I want to know is like they just wrote one of the best stories and like characters of all time with Red Dead Redemption 2. Like,
can you do that again?
Can you do that in like a non-Western setting, like with this like a more modern?
That's what I'm thinking. I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm looking forward to finding out.
I am too.
All right, number 8. This is another one that's kind of like, honestly, I would say it's getting close to that Red Dead Redemption 2 level of like just everybody's like, yeah, this is one of the greatest of all time. It's Baldur's Gate 3.
Oh yeah. Baldur's Gate 3 is amazing, man.
It's another one I don't think anybody really argues with, but unlike Red Dead 2, I still have not played it.
You haven't?
I have not played Baldur's Gate 3 still.
Well, crossplay is about to drop pretty soon.
Yeah, I did hear about
January. That. So
that
do get it.
I think my biggest thing that is holding back so far, obviously $70, but then beyond that is just it just seems very complex with like the combat and the RPG mechanics. And I wonder, I'm sure I could overcome it, but just like it just seems like a lot of work.
Okay.
And I'm just like, how much? Like I've never played D&D or anything, so like how much am I going to struggle to get into this?
I'm going to calm your nerves right now. My aunt hates turn-based games. She cannot get into turn-based games. She loves Baldur's Gate 3. We played it on my PlayStation 5.
That's crazy.
For you,
she's a gamer.
For you,
yeah,
it's not going to be hard at all.
Okay.
I know it seems like it, but literally, you'll love it.
Yeah, I know I will. Away. I know I would love it. Yeah.
Like combat, I feel like you're stressing about the combat, and like you're like, I might not be as good. You'll get it.
Well, I like turn-based combat. It's just like this is like a lot more complex than like a JRPG, obviously.
It's a little more complex, but in the sense of once you start it, you'll get it like instantly for you.
Yeah. Yeah. So what is it about for you that's like puts up this high? Is it like the story, the characters, the combat?
All three of those, it's the story. It's an average story.
Okay.
I'll say it's a good story, but we have brain parasites. We need to get the brain parasites.
Okay.
In. But it's the characters and your freedom to do what you want to do pretty much. Where it goes from, like, you could play an evil character. Like, they have the Dark Urge.
Yeah, the Dark Urge.
But even if you don't play the Dark Urge, you can still do stuff similar to what the Dark Urge would do.
Sure.
But it's like how characters react to what you do. So, like, Asterion, he's the rogue vampire guy who's all, hello, I'm Asterion.
Sure.
People go crazy over him.
Yeah, I know.
And it's funny. And it's like, of course he has his own story. Like, each character has their own story that you have to go through. But you don't have to go through it. But if you do, you understand them a lot more. And you're like, oh, okay, this is why Asterion acts like an asshole a lot of times.
Sure. Yeah, I think obviously it's obviously a series that's existed for a long time, Baldur's Gate, but like, and it was actually BioWare that made it before, so like you'll get it. I think the deeper you get into Mass Effect, it probably will also do some similar stuff for you, but it might not be to the level of Baldur's Gate because everybody's like talking about how Baldur's Gate is just
go pretty story-wise. They go pretty deep in a lot of places where you're like, okay, oh yeah.
Yeah, I definitely. It's very high on my list of just like games in general that I like just in all of the world, like that. Obviously, that I really need to play. It's up there. Honestly, Metaphor is up there right now. Final Fantasy Tactics is up there because I love Final Fantasy so much, and it's a turn-based kind of like Final Fantasy or Fire Emblem style like Final Fantasy game. I definitely gotta try that. So, but like Baldur's Gate 3 is like right there with those. But last thing is you mentioned obviously that you can do multiplayer. Have you done multiplayer, or have you mostly just done it by yourself?
I've mostly done it by myself. So what I did is I played all the way to Act 3. And I remember I was like, okay, I'm gonna take a little break, and I was watching YouTube, and there was a guy doing something in Act 1 that I was like, I never even saw.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, let me stop looking at this act, because it's like segmented. So I went to Act 2. He was doing something in Act 2 I never saw, and I was like, I'm starting over.
Yeah.
So I started over, but I stopped because I was like, they're constantly releasing new content.
I know. That's
so I'm
crazy,
gonna
too.
wait, because like even with this new update where they're adding crossplay, they're adding more subclasses for stuff, and it's like, well, I can't start playing now because they're gonna add new subclasses,
Right.
which could be useful later. Which of course you can also just change your class mid game. I think it's like 100 gold or whatever, but
Mhm.
that's gonna be something when we start playing it.
I definitely gotta play it, and Reagan actually has played D&D before, so she
Mhm.
obviously, I think she would.
See,
as well.
I've never, even though I love Baldur's Gate and love D&D as a whole, I've never played D&D.
Yeah, me either. I guess like the closest I come is like Knights of the Old Republic has also kind of works with the D&D
Mhm.
system. It's technically turn based, but they kind of try to hide that it's turn based. Like it kind of automatically are like doing your moves for you, sort of. You're just like queuing them up. Anyway, yeah, Baldur's Gate obviously legendary, but above Baldur's Gate, I don't think anything on this list warmed my heart more than this. Number 7, Final Fantasy 15.
Dude. Okay. I know which actually I don't know why there was so much hate about this game. I absolutely love 15.
Yeah, I do too.
It's just how it starts. Your dad's like sending you off, and you're with the boys, and
Yes, you are.
you're like, all right, let's go. And then the next scene
Is the car
after
breaking
leaving
down?
is the car breaking down.
Yeah.
And they're complaining about who has to push it, and then
Yep.
that song by Benny King.
Yeah, Benny King.
And
Yep.
I was like, this is gonna be something.
Yeah, it is.
And just the whole aesthetic of like the clothing they
Yeah.
wore and stuff, and the weapons you can get.
Mhm.
I was like, this is a beautiful game. It was
Yeah.
amazing.
I know, I love it as well. So like and I'm a huge fan of the series,
Mhm.
not just Final Fantasy 15. But I don't think 15 gets enough credit.
It doesn't.
Like I think for like hardcore, like people that are like old school fans like me of like the old games of the series, they don't kind of consider it Final Fantasy enough, right? Because it's like a more modern open world game, and it's like very different from the old ones.
Right.
And then like I think a lot of new people were kind of like thrown off because it is like kind of a weird game, in terms of like the way its open world works and like the structure of it, and going around in the car that you don't really have a whole lot of control over, and then like unless you make it a monster truck, but you couldn't do it first. But I just think there is like so much good stuff in there.
There's so much to it that people like. Because I remember my mom even talked about. She said if I did play a game, I would want to play this game because I saw my favorite YouTuber playing, and I was like, "You've never even played Minecraft. What makes you think you're gonna get through Final Fantasy 15?"
I know, yeah. Have you like spent much time with other Final Fantasy games?
I actually have, and here recently I started. I think it's 8.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow, 8 that is a weird game. Let me tell you. In terms of like even like Final Fantasy games, it's just because like the RPG mechanics of it are weird with like the junction system. They're very compared. Like that's like so I've played 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, not 10. Yeah, that's another one that I really should play. Not 12, 15, 16. And then I had played like Crisis Core was like a kind of spin-off of something, like a prequel. So I played that as well. But of all of those, 8 is without doubt the weirdest. It is a strange game.
And I was like, okay, because it was on sale.
Yeah,
They're having a winter sale on Steam, and I was like, okay. But yeah, Final Fantasy as a whole, I've dabbled a little bit in not the original 7, but the remake 7.
Oh, sure. Well, yeah. Also, I didn't mention those, but obviously I played remake.
And then weird thing, I played the what was it? Was it 14? The MMO?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I played the MMO up until like level 30, and then I stopped.
Okay.
It's pretty interesting, but I was like, okay.
Yeah, people that are getting really into it are like obsessed with that game. They think it's like the greatest game ever.
Yeah, that's what people kept saying. So I was like, I'm gonna give it a try.
Yeah.
I gave it a try. It was fun, but of course I didn't play with anybody, which is an MMO. That's the thing I realized with MMOs, you're gonna have to play with people to have a better experience. But I always play MMOs by myself, so I'm like, all right, I had my fun with it.
Yeah, I definitely need to. That's another one where it's like very intimidating to me, Final Fantasy 14, because it's like, man,
it's a lot.
Yeah,
because you start from the very beginning of when they released it, till today's.
Exactly.
So it's a lot.
But 15, on the other hand, very approachable. There's a lot of things that I really like about it. I really like it's very simple combat, and I think that has been a criticism as well, because like it's realistically, it's kind of mostly one button combat, and then like but you can do the warp strikes, which I think is
Yeah, the
such a
warp
cool
strikes
mechanic.
are really good.
And then like there's also I don't know if you got into it because like you don't have to, but like the magic system where like you draw the magic out of things, and then you kind of can spine them, and like they kind of it's like a very weird wonky system because like you set off a magic and then like it's like a nuclear bomb going off, and then your own guys are like no, they're like reacting to it and like getting hit by it. But I'm just like, well, fuck you, get out of the way.
Get out of the way.
Because like I just like they just was like so cool to me. And then like the open world obviously was like the first open world Final Fantasy game, and like for me, just like as a fan of the series, like that was like really cool to see, you know. And obviously, 7 Rebirth is like open world as well. So that's kind of it. I think 15 kind of dampened the impact of 7 Rebirth a little bit, just because it's like, well, I've already done an open world Final Fantasy game. Right. It's Final Fantasy 15. It's amazing.
Well, what do you think about 16?
I love 16 as well. Have you played 16 as well?
Played 16 for a few hours. And I'm actually gonna go back and start it over.
Yeah, like it. That was also a big departure because that one's kind of almost like a Devil May Cry. Yeah. I think actually that guy that worked on Devil May Cry, whatever the combat director or whatever, was like 16. So that was really cool. Like that in terms of action combat, I think it's probably my favorite of like any action combat game that I've played. Like,
it's good.
And like it just keeps getting better and better as it goes. And one thing that's really smart about it is you're getting all these different moves, but you only have so many that you can have equipped at a time. But at any time in the game, for free, you can just be like, okay, start over. Let me like reconfigure my character and like change my moves out and stuff. And like that's like genius.
See, because I remember the first time I was like actually looking into Final Fantasy, I was like, what Final Fantasy game should I start with? Because there's so many.
Oh yeah.
And then that's when I realized, oh, they're all their own story.
Yeah.
So it really okay, so it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Just like what kind of game that you want to play. So like if you want an open world, then you can play 15. If you want like a kind of an action game, you'll go for 16. If you want more of like a turn-based style, you go one of the older ones. Yeah. And then like, you know, I don't think 15, go back to 15, I don't think it has like the best like characters necessarily, but like the dynamic of the group
was amazing.
It's so good. Yeah. And then like being a longtime fan, like you can go to like the different stations or whatever, and then like you can get like different Final Fantasy albums to like listen to in your car. Like I love that. Like that was like really great for me. You know, I think a lot of people don't really they get like confused by the story and stuff, and like it is kind of weird because they have like the movie and they have like an anime that is like a prequel, and then they have like all the DLCs that they did. But I got into all that stuff. Yeah, I was like, if you like really get into all that, like it's awesome. Amazing. Yeah. And then like I really loved the villain as well, Arden. Like my favorite Final Fantasy villain is Sephiroth, and he's like maybe my favorite villain just like of all time. But I'll put Arden in second place. Like even at all the Final Fantasy games that I played,
you would put him in second.
I would put Arden in second. Yeah, and a lot of that because like he has his own DLC that's like really fleshes out like his story, and then like he even had like a little anime episode. It's kind of like explaining his backstory and stuff. And like I understand like the first time you play, like you might not understand all that, right? But like if you actually do it all, like man, it's pretty awesome. Yeah. I haven't showed this into Reagan yet. We played several Final Fantasy games without 15, but that's the plan. I'm gonna like do it all, like show her all the stuff.
Oh yeah, that's gonna be amazing.
And yeah, hopefully she'll really get into it. So yeah, Final Fantasy 15. It is. Oh, and I guess I should say the summons in 15.
Oh yeah,
they are just like so cool. So like in all the Final Fantasy games, obviously every Final Fantasy game has summons, but and it's a lot of the same ones. It's just like done in different ways. And like in 16, they're a huge part of it as well. Like in 16, it's like they're tied to a character, and like they're kind of like 16. You know, people were always like, "Oh, it's like they're going Game of Thrones." What 16 is like, there is some Game of Thrones. It is like it's like Game of Thrones mashed with Dragon Ball Z, where it's like they're just like going like
they go at it.
Yeah, exactly. So like that's pretty awesome. But like with 15, it's like they're just kind of out in the world, right?
They're just there,
and then like you kind of try to get them to help your cause. And then like even throughout the game, it's like the only Final Fantasy where you don't decide when to do the summon. Like they just like, okay, we're like it'll start storming or something. It's like, oh man, these people are about to get destroyed. Because then like you just like dial it in whenever the option pops up, and they just completely obliterate whatever you're like up against. It is just so, and you don't know necessarily when it's gonna happen. God, it is so awesome, and like the scale of it. Yeah, I love Final Fantasy 15 so much. It's not my favorite in the series, obviously, but it is very high and still one of my favorite games ever. And number 6, also one of my favorite games of all time, The Witcher 3.
The Witcher 3, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's just I kind of consider The Witcher 3 and Red Dead 2 kind of like, even though they're different genres, obviously. Like The Witcher
Mhm.
3 is RPG and the Red Dead is not. I kind of consider them kind of like sister games in a way. Because
I would too.
Yeah.
I get where you're coming from with that.
yeah,
So.
because they were both like sort of redefining how good open world games could be.
Mhm.
Like kind of the same. I guess you could kind of throw Breath of the Wild in there as well, but
Yeah.
it's like a little bit more Nintendo-fied,
Mhm.
Whereas like The Witcher when it came out, so I didn't play it in 2015 mostly because whenever I was in 2015, that's when I got my PS4,
Mhm.
and I got it for Fallout 4, and I played nothing but Fallout 4 for like 2 years.
Okay. Yeah.
I was just like so obsessed with Fallout 4 because like before I was like on the PS3, I got so into Fallout 3 and then New Vegas and Skyrim as well. And like I was just like so into those style of games at that time. And then when Fallout 4 came out, I was just like so freaking excited. That's probably the most excited I've ever been for a game. So I played Fallout 4 and just played it to death. And then finally, after like 2 years of playing Fallout 4, I was like, I need to play something
I'm
different.
done.
And then I went to GameStop and I was like, I'm an open book. What am I gonna get here? And like 15, actually Final Fantasy 15 was an option. I considered Final Fantasy 15, but there's actually like a screen showing The Witcher 3 like in there. I was like, man, that looks pretty sweet. I think I'm gonna go for The Witcher 3. And yeah, it was just in terms of games that just like blew my mind. Witcher 3 is
Witcher
very
3 is pretty crazy.
yeah. Did you play it like kind of around when it came out or
Not when it came out. It was a few years after it came
okay?
out.
Did you like
And
get like play the DLC and everything as
I
well?
got to dabble into DLC. I never went through and saw the full vision, but I've dabbled in it.
They are crazy, crazy good.
Really?
Like maybe the best DLCs ever. Like both there's
I
two
did
of
hear
them.
that. I heard that they're amazing.
Yeah, there's two of them, and I think the one that most people consider the best is called Blood and Wine, and that's like the whole other map they open up, and it's just like it's like the size of like a game basically, not like for a Witcher size game, but like like the Witcher, it's like you kind of go through like the different sections of the map at a time. It's like a whole big one of those, just like it's huge. But actually, I think I like the other one even better, which is not that. It just kind of takes place in the world that you already have, called Hearts of Stone. Man, that one, like if I was ranking my best DLCs of all time, the Bloodborne DLC would be very high. Those two Witcher DLCs. I would say like there's like a Mass Effect 3 DLC I won't spoil for you, but it's
Okay.
also very good. But like and like you won't even like think of it as a DLC with Mass Effect because the way that they do it now, it's like all intertwined together. Like you won't even
I
like
didn't realize it.
yeah, like even whenever I played Mass Effect 2, like the version I played kind of was like that, whereas like I didn't even know I did stuff and I was like I found out later that was a DLC and I was like
Okay,
I didn't even know that was a DLC. But yeah, Witcher 3, I think the best side quests in any game.
Ever.
Yeah,
pretty much.
I mean, I haven't played
I
one
haven't played a side quest where I'm like, okay, I want to do this side quest.
yeah, that's like on the level of that. I already kind of talked about how after playing the game, loved it so much. I have not played it since 2017, and since then I've gone back and read all the books. I even went back and played The Witcher 2, which has some problems, but
Yeah.
I did not love that one as much as The Witcher 3. We'll put it that way. But yeah, in just terms of all-time great games, Witcher 3 is very high. And then also you gotta say Gwent. Like, did you get into Gwent?
I barely got into Gwent, but I played it.
Gwent is like so crazy good. And it was so good that they made their own games out of that.
They made their own Gwent game.
There's like a kind of just like a basic Gwent game where it's like kind of sort of like what you expect from like a Hearthstone or something where you just playing people or whatever. But then there's like another one that they made which I haven't played but it looks amazing where it's like just a story RPG but it's with Gwent mechanics like when you do the combat. Other than that, you're just like
I did hear about that.
That sounds amazing as well. Gosh, like The Witcher. It's very high on my list. I have a feeling that it could go up even higher, having read all the books and everything. And if I go through like the actual games leading up to The Witcher 3, like and then I play The Witcher 3 again, like it could really even shoot up even higher on my list. But yeah, masterpiece of a game, no doubt. But number 5, from the outset, kind of seems a little bit similar to The Witcher, but I have not played it. Dragon's Dogma.
Dragon's
Dark
Dogma.
Arisen.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
That game. I loved it. I played it fairly recently because I had it, but I never really got into it. But then I heard that they were releasing Dragon's Dogma 2.
Yes.
I was like, well, let me go ahead and finish it. So that game is actually really, I feel like more people need to play that game.
Yeah, probably.
Not 2. 2.
Oh, not 2. Not
I hate to say that. I'm not a big fan of 2. I have to. Maybe I should go back and try it again, but there was so much going on with 2. Like, not even mechanic or story-wise, just like performance-wise.
Yeah, I did see that.
That they needed to fix and like, For 2, the save mechanic was odd, where like you could save in one slot, and in the second slot you have a save, but that's for when you go to an end.
Hmm.
And so there was one point where I went to an end, save. That was probably when I was 5 hours in. Didn't go back to an end since. And then my save got corrupted, my
Oof.
original save. And I was probably like 30 hours in. And it was like, we have a save. Here's this one. You can use it. Clicked on it. And I was back at 5 hours. And I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
I literally was like losing my mind. I was like, no. I put it down. I was like, I can't do it. I
Yeah.
can't. But 1, that is a really good game. And like the whole thing with your pawn.
Yeah. What is the deal with the pawns?
So the pawns, they're just your AI buddies. Like instead of which they're like, oh yeah, you can have pawns instead of multiplayer friends, which I was like, okay, whatever. But yeah, you make your own like buddy, I guess you would say, a pawn, and then you go through the game with them. And as you go through the game with them, you can either make them, like a wizard or a assassin or archer or fighter, whatever you please. You can make it like a massive dude because I didn't even notice it in the first game at first, but it's a mechanic that's there. The bigger and taller you are, the more you can carry in your inventory.
Oh, okay.
The shorter you are, the more stamina you have to like crawl on the bosses because that's like a mechanic where you can like
Yeah,
crawl
no,
on
that's
and
awesome.
stab.
I love Shadow of the Colossus, so that seems very cool.
That was super sick. And so going through that, I was like, I made a pawn. We go through the entire story, and then you get to the end. In the end, you get, I think there's 3 or 4 endings.
Okay.
Because you're able to save and then go back and do another ending, and I got the achievement for 3 of them. But the one ending where it was like, hey, you got to become a god. And not like a cool god where you get to do everything. You're just kind of there,
Wow.
and no one can see you.
Okay.
And it's like, okay, how do I do that? You gotta stab yourself with this dagger. So you're basically gonna die. And it was like, oh, okay. So you do that, and then it lets you back into the game world, but you're invisible. No one can see you. So you're just walking around invisible, and the game's over. So
Right.
it's just a walking simulator at that
That
point.
is weird.
And so you go back, do it again, and then you can sacrifice yourself for your pawn, and then your pawn becomes you.
Okay.
It was
That's
kind of a
cool.
weird thing because I had a female pawn, and she then became me, and she woke up and she had her female voice, but it was in like this big,
Oh.
big god body, and I was like, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
But everyone else is like, oh my gosh, you're back, it's you, and she's just like, okay.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that seems like a
It's-
very cool game.
It's a very fun game. I will say, like going into it, a lot of people, because I'm a offender of this as well, like going in thinking, oh, I could just, kill whatever, hack and slash. No, you got to kind of take your time with it sometimes. You got to build yourself up to start to fight stuff because stuff isn't as easy as it looks, I will say, a lot of times in that game. But it's worth the playtime. I will say that.
Yeah, how long did it take you to get through?
It probably took me 60, 70
Okay, so
hours.
pretty long game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Especially if you're doing like side quests.
Which I
There's
would.
quite a few side quests.
Knowing me, I'd be dragging it out as long as possible. So, yeah, I gotta check that out. That was the one that was kind of the same as you. Like when I knew Dragon's Dogma 2 was coming out, it's like, oh man, maybe I should play.
Yeah,
I didn't get around to it, but
I do that a lot.
It does look up my alley for sure.
Mhm.
It looks awesome. Okay, number 4, Last of Us.
The Last of Us Part 1. I put Part 1 because that was the one I played more recently.
It's
But
the
of course,
updated version.
Yeah, dude, I'm gonna say I initially didn't like The Last of Us.
Really?
When I was young, I was younger at the time, and I didn't really know what I was doing, so I kept dying. And
well, it's easy to die.
And so I put it down. But then I actually came back to it, played through it, finished it, liked it so much, went and bought Part 1 and played through all of Part 1.
Yeah. So it's fairly recent then whenever you really finally played through it.
When I finally played it was probably like a year ago.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, it was it's a masterpiece, obviously. It blew me away when I played it for the first time, which was also in 2018. 2018 was a big year for me.
Sounds like it was.
For like playing some new games. Because like I said, I've been just like playing Fallout 4 for like 2015. Well, at the end of 2015, like all 2016, and then a decent chunk of 2017. And then finally like 2017, 2018. Well, I guess 2017 I was like, got to The Witcher, so that took me a long time as well. So then like 2018, I was like checking out a lot of new stuff. But yeah, I'd always heard it was amazing. I grew up with Night Dog. I grew up playing Crash Bandicoot.
Yep.
And then Jack and Daxter in particular. I was a huge fan of Jack and Daxter growing up in particular. And then I had played. See, before I played Last of Us, I probably played the first two Uncharted's at least.
Okay.
So I was pretty well versed in Naughty Dog. But I was like really blown away by it. I was kind of intimidated by it in a sense because I was like, well, is this gonna be like too scary or
Yeah.
whatever? I was like, what is it? But it's really not. But like it was. I also struggle with it at first, like because like the clickers can kill you in one hit
Yeah,
and
that's
like
what was happening.
all
I
that
was
stuff.
like,
I was like, man, this is like really tough. But once by the time I got to the end, and then I also played the DLC as well, I was just like, man, this is just like a masterpiece. There was a time actually where when I first finished it in the DLC for the first time, I was like, this might be my number one. And now it's not quite my number
yeah, of
one
course it
anymore.
goes down as time goes on.
And honestly, I think part of that is that, like I've just played it so many times since then that I think I might have like honestly worn myself out on it a little bit. But man, like it is an amazing game. What do you think? Because obviously, there's no question that the story and characters is like amazing. Everybody knows that. I feel like the biggest criticism I hear about it is like some people just think the gameplay is too, I guess, basic or kind of clunky or whatever. It's like, what do you think about that?
Me personally, I really, really don't agree with that because like that was like the first game where I was like, oh wow, it felt smooth. The combat felt smooth. Of course, you could probably run into a hiccup where something happens and then someone's like, oh, what the hell?
Yeah.
But no, for me, I loved every second of playing. Like just crouching, hiding from clickers and stuff. Like, what was that one mission where you're like going in a building and then there's not clickers, but like the stalkers.
Yeah, the stalkers.
Would stalk you. It's like, of course, in the update when it's like puts you on edge. Where I'm like,
yeah.
Damn, okay.
Yeah, they're pretty creepy. I agree. For me, like, I think what makes it so good for me is the regular gameplay is it's like really what you're doing is you're building up resources. And then you're trying to not expend those resources unless you absolutely have to.
Because if you do, you're kind of screwed.
Because because you can get in a situation, especially because like I've been slowly now. I think in part one, it's a lot easier to get the platinum trophy, which is great. I do want to try that. I actually have it downloaded on my PlayStation right now because I haven't bought it just because it's still very expensive. But they just added it to PlayStation Plus like extra or whatever. So I got on there and when they were running a sale on it, and so I downloaded it. So I am planning on playing that pretty soon. But the platinum trophy on the PS4 version is ridiculous. You gotta like play through it like multiple times and on like the survival difficulty and stuff, which I've done. And they really ramp down, like they ramp up the amount of damage you take, but they ramp down the amount of like resources that you can get. So that was like really tough. And so like you like are just trying to like scrounge up all this stuff and like try not to waste it. And like that can make you feel like very like on edge, like where you go into the thing and you're like, man, I don't know if I have enough stuff. But at the same time, you can go into a room and like just be loaded with stuff and be like, man, these people are about to get fucked up. I'm about to just destroy these fools. You know what I mean? So it's like just like the different ways that just the gameplay mechanics themselves can make you feel about encounters is very impressive, I think. I'm guessing you never really played like the online multiplayer or anything.
I keep saying dabble. I did dabble in the multiplayer a little bit. It was interesting. I'll say that. And I was kind of excited because I played that and I was like, okay, well, that's the thing.
Yeah.
And then Naughty Dog was like, hey, we're doing a multiplayer faction thing. And I was like, oh, awesome. And they're like, actually, we're not doing that, unfortunately.
That's kind of too bad. I have not played a second of the online, but I have heard people say that it actually can be kind of fun.
It can be kind of fun. It's very frustrating, though, because it's like, imagine just everyone's Joel. That's pretty much what it's like. So maybe you're better than me. You're gonna get me 9 times out of 10.
Sure.
Because like a combat in that game is so fast paced. It's like oh my gosh.
Yeah. That's the last thing. So in terms of getting the platinum on the PS4, I have to. You get a trophy for unlocking all the doors. Like with the shivs. There's one door I'm missing somewhere. Not sure which one it is. So I'm having to go through and check all the doors.
I would go insane.
And then I haven't quite maxed Joel out, I think, no, I've maxed him out, but I haven't leveled up or fully upgraded all his guns because like that requires multiple playthroughs to like fully upgrade all his guns, especially on like the hardest difficulty because like they limit the number of stuff that you get, the gears you get and stuff.
Yeah.
But I've done survival difficulty and then survival plus, which you also have to do for a trophy. So now I'm done with all the difficulty trophies, so I dialed that shit down to easy.
I would too.
And like now I'm just like doing like my cleanup run basically, but I haven't done it in a few months. But that That will, if I actually pull off getting the platinum trophy, that would be huge. But even then, I gotta do like the online stuff to like. There's a few platinum or a few trophies on the online. So man, I don't know what my experience is gonna be like with that.
That's gonna be something.
Yeah. But what about part two? Have you played part two?
I've only played. I played up until I started playing as Abby, and that's when I put it down.
Okay, so you weren't crazy about that?
I wasn't super crazy about her, but it wasn't. I didn't put it down because of her. I just put it down in general because I was like, okay, I'm getting kind of tired of Last of Us right now. I'll come back to it. But yeah, I was seeing the hate for Abby online and
big time
the story. I was like,
yes,
yeah, because I even got this part 2 spoiled.
Yeah, a lot of people did.
And when I got it spoiled, I was kind of like, that doesn't make sense to me. But you know, she's trying to let it go and everything. But
right
after you've done what you've done, me personally, I would have killed Abby.
Well, you know, it's interesting because I've listened to a lot of. So I'm a huge fan of part two. I like part two even more than part one. And a lot of that there's a multiple reasons for that. So I did not have anything spoiled for me, so I had no idea. Okay, spoilers for Last Part Two. If you haven't played it, don't listen to this. I did not know Joel's gonna die. I was very sad about it because I love Joel. But at the same time, I was like, I mean, I was like right there with that. Like they wanted you to like really hate those people.
Yeah.
And I was right there with Ellie. I was like, yeah, let's get these fuckers. Let's go over to and like I was like every time I was like crossing one off the list, I was like, man, that's beautiful. I can't give me the next one. Give me the next one. So I was like, I thought that was very effective in terms of like trying to make you feel what the character was feeling. And then I thought like the gameplay of it was like so good. Like in terms of just like third person gameplay, that might be like my number one game. Like just all the not only like it's got everything that was in the first one, but then like the ability to go prone, like the ability to jump, the ability to dodge with the with the melee combat. And then just like stuff that you can like more stuff that you can do, like putting the silencers on your guns. That was like really great. And then making like the bomb arrows. Oh my god, that was so awesome. And so I was like loving all that. I will say like during that first half, like I'm like Seattle Day 3 with Ellie. I was like, I don't know if this one's as good as the first one because it's like a lot of like I was like into it, but I was like, I don't know, it's not like the first one's like such a great journey, like encapsulated in that 1 year, and like so much stuff changes, and I was like, this is just like 3 days, and I was like, I don't know that I really like it as much as first one, but still really great. And then they hit you with the Abby twist where it's like, okay, guess what? Now you got to do it all again as Abby, and I was like, are you kidding me?
What?
I was like, I think that is very like demanding of the player for sure.
It's a lot.
And so I can see why people don't like it, but if you do go through with it and you play through that Abby, play through it Abby, then you realize, oh yeah, this game is genius. Like that is where it really hits that next level.
For me, my understanding, like people, I don't get why people hated Abby so much. I do get it. She killed Joel.
Yeah.
But then as you figure out, it's like, oh, Joel did
cause
this to happen, and we're just mad because we played from the perspective of Joel.
Yeah, okay. Funny story about that is like, so I played the game obviously, and you have to kill the doctor. There's no that was where they came up with that. I've listened to a lot of stuff about like from the developers like talking about Last of Us Part 2, and that was one of the things that Neil Druckmann came up with toward the beginning. Is he was like, well, like they kind of came up with the idea of what if we killed Joel, and then you go on like this quest of revenge for the person that did it, but like how would we make it to where they wanted it to be something that because like Joel has a history and they could have just made it like something that he did in his past, right? But they're like, no, we want it to be something that that he did. It's like, but the problem with that is like, there's no like anybody that you really have to kill as Joel in the first one. They're like, except that doctor. Like, you have to kill that. Everybody has to kill that doctor. And what's funny about that is like, I remember vividly like me doing it for the first time. Like I went in that room and I was like right there with Joel as well. Like I was like, absolutely not. We're gonna get Ellie out of here.
Stop.
And so like I just like popped that doctor, popped the next one, and then like the last one was like cowering in fear, and I was like, okay, maybe I went a little far here. Yeah. And so then like I just like left the other doctor and like just got Ellie out of there. My cousin Brett, I watched him play it for the only time that he ever played it. He rolled up in there, flamethrower.
Actual monster.
So like I remember watching him do that and like part 2 had not even come out yet. And then just like playing part 2 and thinking, man, Brett burned this motherfucker alive.
Joel was pretty crazy.
Yeah. So like that was just like I was like so into that. Like I honestly, I never really liked Abby myself. Like even like playing through all of her, like just like personality wise, I was like, I don't think I would get along with this character very well. But just like in terms of just the overall story, man, like going through her version of those 3 days is so genius. You to learn and discover so many things that you're not even thinking about when you're going through it as Ellie. It's like being able to present two sides of a conflict like that is so impressive. I don't know how they're gonna pull it off of that show. That's people are not gonna be happy when Pedro Pascal gets his brains smashed in.
They're gonna hate that. They're gonna hate the actor. I hope they don't send the
Oh yeah,
actor
they need to
death
have like
threats.
the National fucking Guard
They
guarding
need
her.
to, because you know how people are, man.
Yeah, she needs to be protected at all costs. Whoever that woman that's playing Abby, my lord. But anyway, yeah, I love The Last of Us 1. I love The Last of Us Part 2 anymore. You definitely should play the second one. Okay. Oh, and I guess I should say in terms of the ending of Part 2, where Ellie doesn't kill her. And the original script she did.
She did.
And so that was a change that they made like toward the end.
See, I didn't know that. I thought it was always they were gonna let her go.
Yeah. So that's another thing. So like for me, you kind of have to see it, I think. Like you haven't actually seen it in context. So when you see it in context, I think it's the right decision to not kill her. But I can understand like if you have not played the game yourself.
If you only played one and then you go into
I can see why people would think that was a bad decision. But if you play it the whole thing and you see it for yourself in the context, I think you'll agree it's the right choice. It's the right call. Okay, number 3. Very interesting choice. This is one that I definitely need to go back to. Cyberpunk 2077.
Cyberpunk is
so above The Witcher. Yes. That is crazy.
And I'm only saying that now because they even released another like massive update for it like a few days ago.
Oh, really? A few days ago?
Yes.
Oh man.
It's pretty crazy. But what did it for me was the which I still need to finish it fully, but playing through the DLC.
Yeah,
Phantom Liberty.
Yeah.
That was nice. Seeing that like where it came from till today.
Right.
They did it just
one of a top contender for like comeback video games of all time for sure. Like Fallout 76, Final Fantasy 14, No Man's Sky. Those are all up there as well. But Cyberpunk 2077, I mean, it was so buggy at launch that PlayStation took it off of their store.
Yes, I want to put it at number 1 of comebacks because it's crazy what it went through. Because I remember I bought it initially on PS4. This is how much I was so pumped for this game. Bought it on PS4, couldn't even play it. It kept crashing every like not even 5 minutes.
Because you didn't have your PS5 yet, right? Because it was like right when the PS5 came out, so like it was hard to get
them.
Right.
So I constantly was trying to play every 5 minutes. It would crash. Right. 5 minutes or less, actually. So I make my character go in. It would crash. And I was like, man. So I just bit the bullet. Yeah. So I bit the bullet because I had a PC at the time, but I didn't think it would be able to run Cyberpunk. It was. Oh. I bought it on Steam, started playing it. I ran into one major game-breaking bug is like you go in and talk to Vic. And he's like, all right, sit down. And
I remember that one. Like you can't get out of it or whatever.
Yeah, I was stuck in the room. And I was like, what's going on? So then I had to restart because every time I would load the save, it wouldn't fix it. So I had to restart, go back through that. Then I was finally free. I don't know what was wrong with me, but I stuck with that game.
Yeah, you were putting up with some shit with that, yeah.
Because there were so many bugs in that game. It was so bad, but I loved it to death. I was like, I'm gonna give it a second chance. I'm gonna give it a third chance. I'm gonna give it a fourth chance. And the story, I loved it. I just love the story. Keanu Reeves did an amazing job. I was shocked with that because he did the trailer and he's like, "Wake the fuck up, samurai."
Yeah.
Keanu Reeves.
I know. Yeah.
Then actually seeing him in game, I was like, okay, I get it now.
Right.
But I put it down for a bit after I got pretty far into it, but I put it down and said, I'm going to come back. I know it's going to have updates. I was probably like 30 hours in or somewhat.
Yeah.
Put it down, came back, was even better.
Right.
I was like, okay, they fixed a lot of these bugs, they added a bunch of new stuff. Another update came. And another update. And I was like, okay, they're doing a good job. And then Phantom Liberty dropped. And I was like, okay, it's a little much. You guys don't have to keep doing this.
And then they even like kind of changed the way like the leveling system works or something.
Yeah, they did.
That's crazy.
Changed the whole leveling system.
See, I played it right when it came out. I actually did have a PS5 at launch, but they didn't even have a PS5 version. You were still playing the PS4 version. So it still crashed. It didn't crash as much as it sounded like it was happening for you, but it still crashed a decent amount.
Like it was unplayable on PS4.
Yeah.
Literally, that's why they took it off.
The glitch that I remember, and it happened all the time.
I think I know which one.
is calling for your car.
Uh-huh.
And like, no, it's supposed to just kind of like appear next to you. But like, if it was like, if it was like close enough, it would just go like, just you would just see it flying through the air, like doing flips just like crazy. It was like, bam, just crash next to you.
And I don't know how many times I would call it, and I was being a dumbass, obviously, but I was standing in the middle of the road, it just run me over, and I was like, okay.
That's right. That could happen too. I forgot about that. Yeah, so that was like the big thing I remember. But I think the reason that I ended up putting it down back then, and I probably got I think I might even got to like 40 hours, like a little bit even past what you did, was it was just all the open world stuff was like very samey to me. Like there was like the quests were good, but then like all like the little fights and stuff, like it was just like, man, I just feel like I'm kind of just doing the same thing over and over again. So I think that was like my biggest problem with it. But is that still kind of like a problem today? Like if I was gonna go back to it,
I would say it's about like the same with those fights and stuff.
Yeah.
Like of course they added new mechanics and stuff, like where if you're shooting a gun or a shotgun or something, your stamina meter goes down.
Oh, really?
Your aim goes off. Yeah.
Oh man, that wasn't in there.
So they added a lot of cool stuff, but at the same time, I will say it's still Cyberpunk.
Right.
Which me personally, I love the story of Cyberpunk.
Right.
Gameplay wise, they could have done a lot better, but story wise, I was really impressed with the story that they did.
Yeah.
Like, it's CD Projekt Red.
Right, that's the thing. I do want to give them another chance because I love The Witcher 3 so much.
But that's another thing. Have you noticed like whenever a game goes modern or futuristic, it never hits as hard as
the
medieval or cowboy,
that's
Western.
A good point.
I don't know why that is. Like I don't know if they're trying to do too much and then they lose the scope of it because they're like, oh, we need to make it techie. We need to do all this. And
right.
Well, we really didn't flesh out this character as much as we should have.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. It's an interesting point. Hard to say. Yeah, maybe it's just easier to do like a fantasy setting.
That's what I'm thinking. Fantasy seems like the route to go for games because there's more good fantasy games than there are, futuristic shooter techie type games.
Yeah. Well, I'll definitely have to go back to that. But number 2, this is an interesting pick. Definitely a game that I've heard a lot about. Death Stranding.
Oh my
Another
gosh.
Kojima experience.
I'm a Kojima boy.
Apparently.
No, Death Stranding, I really... Okay, so everyone hated it. Well, I don't want to say everyone, but...
Yeah, but it was divisive.
Yeah,
sure.
People were like, walking simulator, Amazon simulator.
Amazon simulator.
But I stuck with it because around the time I was playing it, that was the year... it was after my friend passed away. And that's when I was like, I'm kind of done with video games and stuff for now. So I stopped playing video games for a little bit. And that was like my first game back.
Oh, okay.
And I would say I wasn't in like the best headspace at the time.
Okay.
But as I started playing it, the music, the soundtrack for that game is phenomenal.
Really? Okay.
And that's what kind of grabbed me because I think it was the headspace I was in at the time and I just wasn't feeling it. And then you just hear the song come on. He's like, don't be so serious.
Okay.
And I was like, okay. Made me tear up a little bit. And I was like, all right. I'm fine.
All right.
And so that's what really got to me. It was the soundtrack. It was just such a beautiful soundtrack. And then the landscape. Because it was like the visual cues and stuff like that. But I think that's what's also, for me, what a lot of those games are. They're like moments in my life that I remember.
Oh, yeah. Totally.
So like for Death Stranding, that was a point where I was like just down and out of it, and that game kind of brought a little happiness back because it's Kojima, silly, goofy stuff.
Right.
But it was also interesting, just walking, seeing the landscapes, and then there's also combat.
Sure.
But I thought it was interesting that they put an emphasis on you don't have to kill people. We don't want you to kill people because then it's just gonna cause havoc. Like. You know about it, right? Or you don't?
Not a whole lot, but I knew that, I knew that it's not really, I knew that there was combat in it, but it's not really like a combat game.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
They want you to avoid, like, you can knock people out, but if you kill someone, then their body will start to get decay at like a fast rate and get what they call chiral energy.
Okay. And
then just the body becomes a nuke.
Oh.
And then it will leave a massive crater in your map.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's just there.
I did not know that.
And so
that's cool.
It incentivizes you not to kill people. So I was like, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
But that game, it's a good game. I would say most people wouldn't like it because it's a walking simulator. You're delivering stuff.
Yeah, delivering some packages.
You're
And
changing
people.
boots. Yeah, and people and dead bodies at times. But if you can get into it, it's a good game with a good story.
I definitely want to try it, especially because the second one is obviously on the way, and
Mhm.
everybody's kind of been talking about that right now. That's another 2025
Yeah, it's
game.
another big one.
So we'll see. What? So is it as weird as it looks?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Okay.
It is very odd because I remember the scene where you're going to see the president, who is your mom, and the main character Sam has a phobia of people touching him,
Okay.
and his mom is dying, and she's like, "I love you, Sam," and tries to give him a hug. He's like, "Back up."
Okay.
And like as she's dying, she's like crawling towards him, and like there's that black goo coming out because she's like hooked to a system. She falls off, and there's black goo everywhere, and she's like touching him. And as she touches him, she looks like the handprints that you see throughout the game, like of the ghost spirit things that chase after Sam.
Okay.
It's interesting, I will say that, but it is very, very odd.
Yeah. Yeah. That sounds cool. And do you think that kind of like what you said when it came out, there are a lot of people did not like it. Do you think that people have kind of come around on it a little bit since then?
I believe so.
I think so too.
Because I hear a lot of good stuff about it now than I did back then. Back then they were just like walking simulator, and
Right.
like everyone was hating on it, and I was like, it's not that bad.
Right. I think it's cool that it does seem like a game that it's not really like anything else.
Mhm.
And so
It's a game. If you want to sit down and play an action game,
yeah, not that.
that's not that game. This is a game where you kind of want to sit down and be like, okay, let's do something.
Right, right. Yeah. I think that's really cool. I think that it should be commended that it's like a game that is unique.
Mhm.
And that also seems to be kind of what's going on with your number one.
Mhm.
Disco Elysium.
Dude, I talk about this game too much.
When did you play this?
Oh, this was a while back because I had it on Switch initially.
Okay.
So Switch, which I have it on Switch, PlayStation, and PC.
Okay.
Because I love that game.
Yeah.
But it's just such an interesting game where you're just the main character is always in his head for the most part. But you wake up, you're in a hotel room, you don't know what's going on. He just has his underwear and socks on.
Okay.
And your first task is to find his clothes, get him dressed, and get him out of the door of his hotel room. And within that time span of you doing that, you can die. You can lose the game and have a heart attack within that time span.
Wow.
Because it's absolutely ludicrous, the stuff you can do in that game. And it's another big narrative game. Just
Yeah,
like a
that sounds great.
massive story, I should say. But it's just like silly humor, but also at the same time, it can be serious when it needs to be.
Yeah, so like kind of the way that I don't know like a ton about Disco Elysium. I do know about it. I know that people who have played it say that it's like amazing, and it sounds awesome. So is it like do you like make the character? I know he always kind of looks the same, but then like you kind of like make his like you give him like RPG type stats and stuff.
Yeah, you mess around with his stats at the very beginning, and then after that, your stats can change depending on what clothing you put on him.
Okay,
it's like when you start, he has like this ugly green outfit, and then he has these alligator dress shoes that are horrendous.
Yeah.
But like different things give you different stats. Like if you wear like a tank top, it'll give you more physical strength to do stuff. So like there's a scene where you have to try to get past this massive guy who's also a racist.
Oh, great.
And it's either you internalize his racist rhetoric so then you can, talk to him and be like, okay, yeah, I get what you're saying, blah, blah, and then he'll let you through. Or you can go the physical route and be like, screw you, and try to fight him, which he is like a massive dude. And you're just a drunk pot-bellied cop.
Yeah.
So you can either accomplish that, which is really hard to do, or you can, go the other route of internalizing thoughts. Like, I think that's a cool thing too, where like character knows nothing about something, and then it'll be like, oh, here's a thought bubble, and you click on it. And instead of you having to go through like a bunch of text and stuff, it's you walk around and still play the game, and as time goes in the game, so does that thought clock. And once it's finished, it's like, oh, we finished internalizing it. Here's what we have to say about it. And it's like, are you, like, for example, it's like, are you a racist? Yes or no? And it's like, no. Or like, as you're playing through it, the game also keeps in check how many times like you say sorry, or like you're constantly saying sorry to somebody, and then your own thoughts will come in later and be like, we finally have a place for you now. you're the sorry cop.
Oh,
And it's like you can either accept that fate and become the sorry cop, or be like, no, I'm not the sorry cop, blah, 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 and you argue with it and be like, that's something a sorry cop would say. And then it goes away. But it's a very in-depth story. It's cool. You and Reagan would like it.
yeah, I'm sure that we
It's
would.
very funny, but it's a good story.
And I do have it, so yeah, I definitely want to try it out. So, so like the gameplay itself is just like a lot of like dialogue options, kind of like a
Yes.
Telltale type game, but just more in depth. Like,
I would say my dialogue options, a lot of them are in his head.
yeah,
Because it's different, which that was another cool thing. Like it's mostly all voice, but
sure.
each different like train of thought has a different voice.
Okay.
And so like I can't even remember what they're all called, but like each thought has a different voice. And so you're sitting there arguing with different voices in your head, and then you're still talking to someone over here. So it's like you're having a conversation over here, and then you're having a conversation in real life, and you're like, oh crap, what was going on?
Mm-hmm.
That's Harry. He's pretty scatterbrained.
Yeah, very cool. Okay, so like I guess kind of like last thought here on like just like this listen and like Disco Elysium #1. It's interesting to see. So like Disco Elysium, I think it came out like at the very end of like 2019. So it's like a fairly new game, you know. And I think that's not super common for people like that will pick something that came out fairly recently to be like their #1. Like mine kind of feels like a nostalgic pick because I had Final Fantasy VII, which came out in '97, but I didn't actually play it until like 2017, so it's not like as much of a nostalgic pick as you might think. But you know, a lot of people like will pick their #1 and it'll be like something that you know they played as a kid or whatever, and then like they'll be like, nothing is ever gonna pass this. You know, what I mean? Like this is gonna be my #1 forever. So for you with like a game like Disco Elysium where it's you know, more recent pick. Do you feel that way where it's like, man, Disco Elysium is my #1 and nothing's ever going to be able to pass it? Or do you think that it's possible?
I feel, okay, so like you're saying, or as I was saying too, like 2 and Death Stranding and Disco, I played kind of around the same time.
Okay.
So I was kind of in that same headspace, and those 2 games made me feel better in the sense of, I don't think, like, of course, I've played games better than Disco Elysium, but I don't think I'll ever really put anything above Disco Elysium. Like, of course, there's games that obviously should go above it, but for me, Disco Elysium is always going to be that game where people can't get me to shut up about it if they bring it up.
Okay, yeah, interesting. Like for me with Final Fantasy VII, I don't think it's impossible for something to get past Final Fantasy VII for me. Because, like, for instance, when me and Reagan played through Bloodborne recently, so when I made my top 25, Bloodborne was like #5. And that's very high. But whenever I played through it with her, and then this time I like actually like took notes and like I wrote down like all and like really absorbed all of the like item descriptions and stuff, and like just really got into it, and like just being able to kind of like introduce it to somebody else. It's like 5 is too low, so like I actually bumped it up all the way to #2. I didn't consider putting it at #1, but I got it like all the way up to that point, and so like. I don't know, like Final Fantasy VII, there have been times where I have put something above Final Fantasy VII and then just like taking it back, you know, and like been like, actually, I do think actually Final Fantasy VII is probably still my #1. And like The Last was an example where I played through The Last of Us, I was like, man, I think that might be my #1. And then like later on I went back and played Final Fantasy VII and I was like, nah, I think maybe Final Fantasy VII is still #1. So I don't know if nothing else is gonna be able to surpass Final Fantasy VII, but I kind of like the idea that it's possible, you know, like to like maybe something as unlikely as it might be, something could still come out and like blow my mind to that degree. So,
man, you know. The amount of games I've played, it's kind of hard because like when you asked me to make a list of 25, I was like, there's so many games.
Yeah. I see it's easier for me because I actually have a list of all the games that I have finished, and it's like a little over 300, I think it's.
Because you know me, I told you this when we first met. I'm a serial game
starter, yes,
but not a finisher.
Right. And see, I used to be that way too, especially whenever I was a kid. I would start a lot of games and not finish a lot of games, and then I've gotten better about that over time. Where I still struggle with it a little bit, like particularly with Reagan. Like whenever I'm showing her stuff, I like I'm showing her something, and then like I kind of like, oh man, but I really want to show you this too.
Right.
And then like I kind of get into this, and so like we have like way too many games going on at one point, and she makes fun of me for that. But for me, I try to. I do like typically have multiple stuff going on at once, but which does make everything take longer. But I try to like actually like get to the end of most things that I finish these days. But also like Jake's games are like really long, so it's like hard to a lot of them are. So it's like it is like a lot of work. Like for instance, Tears of the Kingdom, I've been working on that for like over a year. Now I haven't been playing it every day, obviously, working on it for over a year, but like. I mean, I'm still like chipping away at it, like every now and then.
It's rough, man, because like once you start, because it's like games are an escape, but it's once you start something, it's kind of hard. Because I've noticed I've done this. I'll start to like it and I'll play it, but I don't want to finish it.
Yeah,
so
I know what
like,
you mean.
I'll come back to it later, and then I won't come back to it because mentally my brain's like, you just don't want to finish it right now.
Yeah,
you'll come back to it later.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And so like over time, I've definitely gotten better about that. So. We'll see. Maybe maybe you'll have the same trajectory I did, or maybe you'll continue to be a serial starter instead
of not. I'm tired of the amount of games.
But that was an interesting discussion. There you have it. Another guest, another entry into our top 25 series. We now have mine, Reagan's, Sean's, yours. So that's 4 so far. So that's 100 games that have been discussed. I mean, there've been some overlaps. It's not really 100 games, but I think this is an idea that I had while I was kind of preparing this. Yesterday, I was kind of like looking at your list and thinking about the games and what I want to say about them. Like, I think it'll be fun. Like once I get some more people on, because I'm definitely gonna have my brother on. I'm gonna have my cousin Brett on, probably my cousin Lauren on, and there might even be some other people that I have on in addition to that. But like the more people I can get on, I think it would be fun to like actually do like where I like combine the lists and we have like a controlled burns. Like
that would be pretty sick.
Like. Greatest of all time list. So I don't know how well Project Zomboid's going to do. I think you're going to be
Project Zomboid is probably going to be the lowest on the list.
You're going to be the sole champion for Project Zomboid.
I'm almost certain of that.
But maybe we should play Project Zomboid, and then maybe it'd be higher on some of our other lists. So, but that's an idea that I've only recently thought about. So that'll be something for down the road for sure. But for now, thanks Chase for being on. It was a fun discussion.
Man, it was great.
Awesome. And then for people listening, you can let me know what you think and suggest future lists and topics for us to tackle right into the podcast at ControlledBurnes with an ES@gmail.com. And if you enjoy the show and you want to hear more lists, please subscribe, follow, like, review wherever you listen to your podcast. So thanks for listening, and until next time, keep it warm.